work, build, steward, and govern themselves. Scripture gives work a sacred weight. In Genesis, God placed man in the garden to work it and to keep it. Proverbs honors the one who works his land. Paul warns against idleness and calls believers to earn their bread. Why does that still matter today? Because education should form capable people under God, not dependent subjects under bureaucracy.
I'm Gary Carr, retired homicide detective and the owner of Illinois Concealed Carry Training in Midlothian. For 10 years, we've helped more than 20,000 students become safe, responsible, and confident firearm owners. If you're looking to get your Illinois Concealed Carry license or need to renew, now is the perfect time. Our law enforcement-led training gives you the knowledge and skills to protect yourself and your family. Our 16-hour concealed carry class includes live fire training, one-on-one coaching, Illinois and Florida certification for expanded reciprocity, range qualification, and a full-color textbook. We provide the firearm, ammunition, eye and ear protection, targets, and range access. Need a renewal? Our 3-hour renewal class keeps you legal and current on Illinois firearm laws. Thousands of students have trusted us for professional instruction, flexible scheduling, and exceptional value. Illinois Concealed Carry Training in Midlothian for classes, less lethal options, and self-defense legal plans. Visit us at concealedcarrychicago.com to reserve your seat today. That's concealedcarrychicago.com, concealedcarrychicago.com.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will feature partly sunny skies with the possibility of a strong thunderstorm in some areas late this afternoon. Expect reduced air quality due to wildfire smoke with the potential for storms to bring damaging winds and hail. The high temperature will reach 86 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So both JB and BJ have had a lot to say recently about the problems they're having in eliminating a budget deficit. On the one hand, that would be BJ, and all the good things they've delivered for the state of Illinois, and that, of course, would be JB setting up his messaging and political positioning for his presidential run, of course. Let's start with BLM Brandon, because on Friday he did his weekly stop-through at WBEZ to field softballs from government-funded media, government-run media. And this is what he had to say about the revenue problems that he's having. It's not a spend problem, as, of course, we all know. Never a spend problem. It's a revenue problem. The revenue measures he's proposed work. The revenue measures that he's proposed that have been rejected have been replaced by inferior revenue measures. So he's better at extracting other people's stuff than his fellow travelers on the city council and some recalcitrants who want some professional political separation from BLM Brandon in advance of their own mayoral interests come the winter of next year, even though they're really, there really isn't a dime's worth of difference functionally, substantively in the positions they've taken. But okay, here's give the mayor the floor. What's working, what isn't?
Earlier this month, your administration released a mid-year budget report. Right now, it's not looking good. There could be a $130 million budget hole at least this year. What's not working?
What the city council voted on. That's what's not working. The revenue proposals that I put forward, all of those revenue proposals are overperforming. Social media amusement responsibility tax, PPLT are performing well, and these were more progressive forms of revenue. The revenues that were put forward by city council, in most instances, they've generated $0. So for instance, the city council voted, instead of taxing the largest corporations in the city of Chicago, they decided to sell debt of working people when no one has bought that debt.
You're pointing fingers at each other because some alders are pointing fingers at you.
I'm not pointing fingers. You asked me like what happened, and I'm saying that those revenue sources did not perform.
So how are you going to work together with the council?
We're going to have to, right? And I've always said that we have to work together. But here's the thing. You got to do the stuff that works. What I put forward is working. What they put forward is not. There's a pathway here. I mean, you heard caller after caller talk about investments. We left $100 million on the table because you had corporatists that were more aligned with the interests of these big corporations versus fighting for the interests of working people. I'm going to continue to stand up and fight for working people because that's what I was elected to do. That's where I come from. And so city council has to take on some responsibility for what they did. As far as how I approach the situation, of course, I'm going to find solutions, but don't act like what they did not fail, because it did. And don't dismiss what I did that's been successful. Don't dismiss it. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm just saying that I know what can work. And if you prove me otherwise, I'm happy to adjust my tendencies. But once it's proven that it did not work and the people of Chicago actually wanted us to tax these big corporations, the fact that they went against the will of the people is more problematic than the situation of the shortfall, because it could have been avoided.
So he's for what works and he's against what doesn't. And who could be against that? 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. It all comes down to that projected $100 million from a corporate head tax, reinstituting a corporate head tax. And so we're back to that, where anybody who is just pretending to be a neo-Bolshevik is being called out by the real McCoy, right? Little Billy Conway parades around like he's a tried and true neo-Bolshevik, but he's just pantomiming the same way that Jelly Belly does because he has aspirations for a high office. And there's a lot of people in the city council like him, and there's a lot of people in the city council like BLM Brandon who are dyed in the wool reds and loyal apparatchiks for the cause. And we're seeing this play out now on the national level with the DSA, which we're going to be talking about a lot this morning because we had that we've just gotten a lot of commentary. I mean, I appreciate it. And we're going to try and at least get the locals on our show, if not the nationals, because I want to talk free markets versus central planning. I'll talk about that as long as any DSA functionary wants to talk about it. But they're coming out of the woodwork to even appear on Fox News, as one did with Martha McCallum. And it's very instructive. I don't want to silence them. I want to platform them. I want to make sure everybody understands the choices, and let's talk it all through. As it pertains to BLM Brandon, Paul Vallas posted over the weekend that with respect to that budget impasse, because those faux neo-Bolsheviks, not fully in, want some professional political separation. They didn't pass that corporate head tax. $100 million in a $16 billion budget. Is that what it is? Right. That sort of context is not welcome in the conversation among polite society here in Chicago. I understand, but I'm just pointing out. Paul Vallas, what is welcome, pointing this out, the mayor's office is talking layoffs and the police will bear the brunt. Don't forget Tiny Dancer for all those, the halcyon days of Tiny Dancer. I wish we could. Well, remember, he eliminated 1,500 police positions and murders increased by 61%. You remember that? Lightfoot eliminated 1,500 positions and murders increased by 83%. Now, I'm not saying it's a direct causal link, but the correlation is noteworthy, particularly when you have criminology experts talking about the Chicago police in terms of actual cops on the street, understaffed for the scale of the endemic violence problem. And of course, we've talked about this with the Wire Points boys and Vallis, the percentage of high priority 911 calls that go completely unresponded to. Sort of alarming, I would think, particularly if you live in one of those neighborhoods beset by endemic violence. So police is on the chopping block because whether you're a real neo-Bolshevik like BLM Brandon, or a faux pretend one like little Billy Conway who wants to be mayor, wants a sash just like his mentor in terms of approach, Jelly Belly. Little Billy Conway. Regardless, who is going to stand for police in this environment? You think that's the pathway to stepping up? Maybe Susana Mendoza will, even if she has to pay a price for it. And it really doesn't matter that Chicago Police, the one institution that enjoys a majority favorable rating in the city of Chicago. It doesn't matter because that's not where the action is in terms of who is determining what turns out to be in Chicago now basically a controlled election. In the same way that the Daley era provided controlled elections, just different parties in control. And I think little Billy Conway and John Kelly and Ali G are in for a rude awakening over the next 8 months. We'll see. You can talk about Ali G's campaign cash all you want. Tom in Oswego.
Good morning, Dan. Dan, I've been up since a little before 4 o'clock, busting my tail already, trying to make money so that they can take it. And I'm getting sick of these people telling me that they're investing my tax dollars. They're not investing anything. They're taking my money, spending it on their little, pet projects, but they're not improving anything. Guys like B.L. Brandon or whatever his name is, I don't even care anymore. They just don't. The problem is they don't know how to solve anything. All they know how to do is take more money. Like you said, it's not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. I've run a business for 37 years, and if I have a problem, with money, I have to look. Am I making enough, or am I spending too much? One of the two. This is just getting me sick every morning.
Thanks for the call, Tom. I got some good news for you. You may not have realized it, but J.B. Pritzker is putting money in your pocket. Did you know?
What are some of the things that you think really resonate beyond just affordability broadly?
Well, I think my agenda, which I've gotten through and done in Illinois, we have more to do. But I raised the minimum wage. It was $8.25 when I ran for office. I said I was going to raise it to $15 an hour, and I did. I said I was going to make life more affordable, and indeed, we made homeowners insurance more affordable. We made auto insurance more affordable. We said we were going to fix the roads and the bridges and the airports and the water ports across the state, and what do you know? We have. And so there's much more to do, but I think it is about addressing the things that really affect your daily life.
And all those things could be steps in the right direction and could be positive. But just like safety in so many ways, unless people really feel it, it doesn't matter. Right? I mean,
but putting money in people's pockets matters to people. Right?
Exactly. So I'm happy to take calls with thank yous to Governor Pritzker for putting more money in your pocket. Do you feel it? You feel it? When you reach into your pocket and you feel like, where did that cash come from? That's what J.B. Pritzker's doing. It's magic. It's funny because I saw a report last year that Illinois home insurance prices jumped 50% in the last 3 years. That's the second highest in the country. So I don't know how you square that with home insurance rates have come down. We've taken them down. We've raised wages artificially. And the infrastructure investment, I know he did a boondoggle for the road builders, but I still find a study, probably right-wing conspirators afoot, writing reports for AP and the Sun-Times. Sure. Illinois ranks third for worst bridges in the country. So 47th, I guess, in good bridges, third worst in the country. All that money spent. And I got to tell you, I was driving around Indiana because I was on a golf trip last week when I was off. And they have very similar winters to Chicago, as I understand it. It's cold there in the winter. Is that fair? And so some of the same dynamics with respect to salt and wear and tear and so forth. Roads are so much better. Drive around Carmel, Indiana, and compare that to any suburb, even the wealthy ones. But, I'm just telling you what J.B. Pritzker's saying, and whatever J.B. Pritzker says seems to be good enough for a majority of Illinoisans, even though they think that same majority thinks Illinois is on the wrong track. But they just don't blame the people in power. Isn't that interesting? So that's the thing you have to reckon with, the conundrums of the contradictions, where people say, no, it's not going right. No, I feel I'm worse off. No, Illinois is not getting more affordable. And yet I don't want to change out anybody in charge. They go with the boogeymen that the left sets up, the corporatists that the left sets up to ascribe the blame. Greg, Rogers Park.
Hi, Dan. Dan, my concern is the credit ratings are terrible in Illinois, Chicago, and Cook County.
Yeah, but we've had 6. Wait. No, we've had 6 or 7 or 10 or 42. It really doesn't matter. Credit upgrades. J.B. Pritzker says that too. Now we still have the worst credit rating in the country. He doesn't mention that context, but yeah, we've got all these upgrades. Isn't that wonderful? And then, frankly, it was all mainly related to COVID funny money. But I digress. Go ahead.
That was my point. Is that COVID money is the reason why the credit ratings went up. It was all smoke and mirrors. My concern is they're only going to get worse now with all this spending. So basically, we're going to go into total almost bankruptcy.
Thanks for the call, Greg. When we come back at 5:38, let's fold in our neo-Bolshevik friends in New York, because we're talking the same thing. How do you freeze rents? How do you seize properties? And if your bodega or mom and pop business in Chicago can't compete with the government grocery store, well, then maybe you shouldn't be in that business. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
Checking the news story this morning to see if Crooked Stick is still in one place in Carmel.
Well, we played it. I played it pretty well.
Excellent.
Great track.
Yeah, it's a good track.
They should get a PGA again.
I agree with you. 66 degrees. As we check the news and the roads this morning in the QC Kinetics newsroom, we'll also check your air quality as the Canadian wildfire smoke begins to drift a bit into our area again, and we will have hazy conditions again today. A man shot and killed during a fight in Lincoln Park Sunday night. Chicago police say the shooting took place around midnight in the 2200 block of North Lincoln. The man was shot multiple times, transported to Illinois Masonic, and later pronounced dead. A man is dead after being stabbed early Sunday in North Chicago, where police say officers found the victim shortly after midnight, taken to a hospital where he later died. The man in his mid-30s, but his name has not been released. 2 were critically injured in a crash involving a moped in the far north suburbs. It happened Sunday afternoon around 1:45 near Delaney Road and Zupek Drive in Wadsworth. Deputies say a driver slowed down to make a left-hand turn on that moped when a 24-year-old woman driving a Chevy Malibu swerved into a southbound lane and struck that moped. Lake County Police rescued 3 swimmers struggling to stay afloat in Petite Lake Saturday afternoon. Police say the group had been drinking and was not wearing life jackets when they became separated from a rental boat during a bachelor party. The conflict in the Middle East is increasing in intensity after the death of 3 American service members on a 9th straight day of U.S. strikes against Iran Sunday.
We control the strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2. Great patriots.
CENTCOM confirms an Iranian strike killed 2 U.S. service members and left 1 missing, while another service member was killed in action in Iraq. A lettuce sample from Taylor Farms that tested positive for cyclospora was a false positive, according to the FDA. The company Friday said it was voluntarily recalling iceberg lettuce grown in central Mexico after it was linked to a current outbreak of gastrointestinal issues. 9 injured after a shooting on Sunday in Tucson, Arizona. The suspected gunman was shot by police after repeatedly being given commands to stand down. And 2 independent candidates running to replace Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia here in the Chicago area could be shortly removed from the November ballot. State hearing officer says Myra Macias and Chicago Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez did not submit enough valid petition signatures to qualify. There will be a vote and an investigation on Tuesday. First place White Sox claimed their 3-game set with the Toronto Blue Jays following a 3-0 win from Toronto. Sean Burke gave up 2 hits and 1 walk and almost 7 innings of work. Cubs blow out the Twins 10-1 and help out the Southsiders with a 3-game series victory at Wrigley Field. Blackhawks extend Connor Bedard 5 years, $75 million. Ryan Fox captures his first career major championship at age 39, winning the British Open at Royal Birkdale with a birdie on 18. The news service of rockauto.com. A bent tie rod, that'll bring you your driving quickly to a halt. And for parts needed to get back on the road, visit rockauto.com. All the parts your car will ever need at Rock Auto. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, and in 2 minutes, a check of our AccuWeather forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by LeavingIL.com and by Unique Wooden Flags.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
John was an active man. He'd go for runs, walk the golf course, and always take the stairs instead of the elevator. But then bone-on-bone knee pain got in the way and affected his mobility. It became too painful to even go for walks. And when it seemed like John's only option was knee replacement surgery, a friend told him about the Joint Relief Institute and their affordable, non-surgical knee pain relief. John met with the Joint Relief Institute and discovered their lubricating gel treatment could rejuvenate his lost cartilage. Safe, effective, no surgery. Long story short, John is now back to being active without pain or medication.
There is an alternative to knee replacement surgery. Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted. Reclaim your mobility with the Joint Relief Institute.
As a local business owner, you get called every week by marketing companies. We get it. We have hundreds of satisfied customers. Here's what a satisfied client recently said.
Open enrollment is going great. We're hitting record numbers. Thank you so much for this report. It really is amazing to see how the marketing is really shaping our enrollment around the city.
Salem Surround. Is your business hard to find online? Meet with a digital marketer today for ideas that will make your business stand out. Visit salemsurround.com.
If you're watching the market, you may know that gold has pulled back more than 20% from its recent highs. Silver has fallen even further. History shows that this could be the perfect time to diversify your retirement portfolio to include precious metals like gold and silver. In crisis after crisis over the last 50 years, gold fell first, then surged to new highs as the crisis unfolded. That's why Advantage Gold wants to send you a free gold investment guide valued at $49, plus a free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's best-selling book, Our Dollar, Your Problem, when you call 800-900-8000. In today's market, government debt has exploded to nearly $40 trillion, and central banks around the world continue buying gold at record levels. The smart money sees opportunity. If you're considering diversifying a retirement account with precious metals, tax and penalty-free, now is the best time to call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Progressive Insurance. Progressive can protect your home, auto, boat, motorcycle, ATV, RV, and more. In short, a lot of things. Bundle today at Progressive.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will bring a mix of sun and clouds with the possibility of a strong thunderstorm in some areas later this afternoon. Expect reduced air quality due to wildfire smoke with the chance of storms bringing damaging winds and hail. The high temperature will reach 86 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, talking about the DSA folks coming out and proud to talk about the utopia they are going to usher in now that they're winning elections, particularly in big blue cities, but extending beyond that, as we've seen in some congressional primaries. More to come. It looks more likely than not, for example, in Wisconsin, that Francesca Hong, state legislator, is going to be the neo-Bolshevik party, they call it Democrats up there, nominee for governor, for example. Oh, it's happening in the Midwest, yeah. But before we even get to El Said in Michigan in that Senate race, setting that aside and just getting to the substance of some of the issues we were talking about, including here locally with BLM and Jelly Belly, JB and BJ, offering their commentary on all that they have accomplished, and to the extent that there is more work to do, as there always is, you know, that is clearly not their fault, because what they've done has worked. And don't let the fact that a majority of Illinoisans, supermajority of Illinoisans, think the state is on the wrong track fool you. That's the problem, or that's the result of corporatists and MAGA and so on and so forth. And again, the activewear Antifa in the suburbs seems to buy it, so that's, and on the lakefront, so that's good enough to keep JB in charge, and good enough to get BLM Brandon or some facsimile of him in the mayor's office. But just on the more substantive issues, as they started to address taxing and spending, the cost of home insurance, and the quality of the infrastructure, well, let's continue, shall we? Yes, we shall. How about that grocery store business? You know, Zoran Mamdani, the commie, he has proposed a $65 million chain of city-owned grocery stores in New York. And, of course, BLM Brandon has proposed the Gimme Dat grocery store in Chicago, or chain of Gimme Dat stores in Chicago. That's our working name. We haven't heard if he's taken that up or not. That was our suggestion, trying to be constructive. But that hasn't gotten off the ground yet. He's a little slow on the uptake. And, you know, we're nearing re-election. You want to at least break ground before re-election so you have another promise made, promise kept moment, right? And of course, the idea here is this is some sort of innovation, like nobody's ever tried this. So we've talked about before, and we will again. Kansas City did. For about 7 years. Sunfresh in Kansas City. $29 million later in taxpayer subsidies, the store was filled with empty shelves and rotten smells, according to the customers. As one woman told KMBC last year when the announcement was made that we made a game effort, but we can't sustain it. The milk, I'm scared to buy some. Even the dates, they may have a few days over. I don't want to buy that. It's a rancid odor. I think something is dead or something's gone bad. Yeah. It's the smell of burning cash. Yours. Store opened in 2018. Quentin Lucas, he was another one of these affable Dem socialists back in 2018 when it was still the Dem Party formally. Till this takeover happened. And it has happened, by the way. All of these traditional, quote-unquote, Democrats saying, I'm a traditional Democrat, and I disagree with this, and I disagree with that. That's nice. It's interesting. That's not your party. Not your party. So, continue your self-delusion or start openly contemplating making a move like John Fetterman is doing right now all over the talk shows. About moving parties in Pennsylvania. Anyway, the co-chair of the New York City DSA, he's a guy that's got that John Waters-esque pencil mustache, but he has the ponytail. Yeah, sort of young John Waters look with a ponytail. It's a great look. On the grocery store. He appeared on Martha McCallum's show over the weekend, and hey, applaud him. Absolutely. Let's hash it out. And the question was put to him by Martha, among others. What if the city-owned grocery store or stores starts to crowd out the small business guy bodegas? Often, if you've been to New York, often that are owned by first, second generation Americans.
Inspiration's great, but if you're the bodega owner, how would you feel if the government opened a big grocery store right next to your bodega?
If one publicly owned grocery store that brings prices down in the neighborhood is enough to put someone out of business, then maybe they shouldn't have been in that business in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's a very interesting philosophy. That could be applied to other matters, too. This is, by the way, give credit where credit is due. This is Mr. Gordillo, Gustavo Gordillo. That's the philosophy of government-run businesses with no bottom-line sensitivity until you can no longer underwrite it because you have other priorities, as happened in Kansas City. And it's becoming a public embarrassment because customers are complaining about barren shelves and foul smells. Then, okay, time to pull the plug on that. But it's an interesting philosophy he has if it crowds out any private sector businesses because the playing field isn't level. All those equity people. Then maybe you shouldn't be in that business. Well, I that's the rent freeze crowd too, right? So if you can't afford rent in New York City, then maybe you shouldn't live in New York. Wouldn't that stand to follow logically in terms of the approach? 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. Interesting, just a little background on Mr. Gustavo Gordillo. He hails from Peru. And he and his family left. They brought him here because Peru is beset by left-wing terrorism and central planning, the Shining Path. So what do you think about your parents' decision to come here? And why'd you stay? You're an adult now. I mean, given everything that this America needs to be revolutionized, turned over, the Senate abolished, and so forth.
Your family came here from Peru, really in the middle of the heat of the Shining Path. They were Maoist, communist guerrillas in Peru. So why did your family come to America?
The economic situation in South America and in Peru was in a really bad place. But I think that much of what we could say is responsible for that actually was the imposition of capitalism, and American imperialism in many cases is actually what brings immigrants to the U.S. coming out of Latin America. And
so they come here because they don't like the imposition of American imperialism in the country that they're in?
Yes, in many countries.
So they come here.
In many countries, there have been undemocratic coups that have destabilized countries, and that's pushed people out.
Oh, well, you would think they would want to go somewhere that wasn't imposing that on them if that were the case. But, it's interesting.
And what form did American imperialism take in Peru? I don't recall us annexing that. I don't recall Trump proposing to make that a 51st state. And that was obviously Trump. This is, decades ago when his parents came over. And as I understand it, Dad went to work at Wendy's and Mom was a home cleaner, cleaned houses. Gustavo Gordillo, in terms of where did he come up with these ideas? Do you want to take a stab at where he went to college? At least which conference he was in? 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. Yeah, that's right, the Ivy League. Yeah, that's right, Yale. So you come from Peru and you do... entry-level jobs to get by and to make your way in this country so your son can have a better life. And you send him to what is reputed to be a great institution of higher learning. And he becomes a communist spewing these kind of idiotic ideas that wouldn't get past an Econ 101 professor at a community college. This is why, as we talked about on the occasion of America's 250th, I agreed with the piece that was written. The next 250, the battle is in the classrooms. From pre-K through post-secondary. That's where the battle is if we're going to have another 250. As certainly as prosperous as the first. Bill, Northwest Side.
Yeah, for everybody within the listening audience, repeat what Dan always says. You get what you vote for. You get what you vote for.
Thanks for the call, Bill. George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan, we are so fortunate to live in Illinois where Fatty has us so flush with cash, we can eat out all the time.
Thanks for the call, George. On the topic, too, of rent, since we were talking a bit about that, Gordillo has some thoughts. And you're going to freeze the rent. Well, that's not the only freeze. That's not the only cap. Price controls in many glorious forms.
The problem we're facing in our housing system is that we talk about tenants and we say they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They have to be responsible financially. But when we look at the landlords, we don't use those same standards. Landlords in New York have been making a 12% return on their investment on average.
How much should they make? What's fair for the landlord to make if you don't like 12?
They're complaining that 12 is not enough. And we don't think that anyone should have a constitutional right to double-digit returns on their investment. That's why we've implemented...
No one should have a right to a double-digit return on their investment.
No one has a right. That's not... No,
what are you talking about?
No one's in that. That's not in the Constitution. But what we see is that when we implement a rent freeze, we have landlords who are crying that the government is going to put them out of business.
Yeah, stop bitching, landlords. Respect for private property is in the Constitution, which is what that is when you start imposing things like price controls on or caps on a margin, then you are effectively taking someone's property. But okay. Interesting post, too, because this is happening in Chicago. And it's not taking exactly the form being proposed by DSA and Mamdani. Sort of a slow-walking version of it, as we've discussed before. Brandon Johnson following suit with BLM, with Zoran, talking about, inspections and fining derelict landlords. But it's all for the predicate of seizing property. AJ Manasir is a manager of PE investment funds, apparently. Real estate, private equity investment funds, multifamily student housing. He characterizes himself, this is his X account, as politically centrist. I recently sold a three flat in Logan Square. Here are the steps I had to take lawfully to sell my property. So Logan Square, this is Chicago. Sold a 3-flat. I had to inform all tenants by certified mail 30 days before listing the property or beginning any marketing efforts. I had to put written notice all over the building and on every unit door, take photos of these notices. I had to send the photos and paperwork to the Department of Housing and wait for their approval to move forward with selling my property. I risked daily fines if the building is listed before the Department of Housing provides that approval to sell my property. I had to wait 30 days to see if any tenant wants to buy the building. LOL, yeah, sure. They probably wouldn't be renting in my building if they could afford to buy a 3-flat in Logan Square. But, Then when I get an offer, I have to share the price and terms with the tenants. Then I had to get signed refusals from a majority of the tenants before I can transact my own property. And this is just for a 3-flat. For larger buildings, the wait is 120 days. It is a completely insane process and a blatant violation of property rights. But the DSA says it's not in the Constitution, AJ. It is. But here's the kicker. Not in the Constitution. This is a movement that wants to discard the Constitution. When you propose things like abolishing the Senate, you're proposing scrapping the United States Constitution. Not to mention when you basically dress up property seizure as, tenant safety, tenants' rights matters. You're talking about scrapping the Constitution. The cornerstone of a free society, freedom of conscience, property rights. Both are under assault. And nobody articulated that better than Marco Rubio in a speech he gave last week, which has not gotten the attention it deserves. But it will get attention from me. That's what we're going to pick up on now that we've set the table. 6:06, Marco Rubio's speech on left-wing political violence as a threat to the West. It is now 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Another night of American bombing in Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A 9th night in a row.
Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily.
And President Trump is also calling the 4 American troops killed in recent days patriots.
We're out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The War Department's identified 2 of the soldiers killed in an Iranian attack in Jordan Friday. Army First Lieutenant Tyler Fien from Eva Beach, Hawaii, and Private Isabella Gonzalez from Carrollton, Texas. The 3rd soldier's missing. Remains, though, have been found. Another service member killed Saturday in Iraq. Britain is about to get a new leader.
I'm about to visit His Majesty the King to offer my resignation and close the book on my time as Prime Minister.
His replacement will be Andy Burnham, who will meet with King Charles this hour. Burnham has been critical of President Trump, but Fox's Jeff Paul reports from London.
Burnham is also drawing a bit of praise from President Trump. After reports surface, Burnham will announce plans for new oil and gas drilling in the North Sea. The president saying the people of Aberdeen and Scotland are dancing in the streets because the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has stated that he will be opening up all the way the invaluable North Sea oil. It is one of the greatest sources of quality oil on Earth.
Speaking of oil, prices barely moving this morning, but they've risen lately. So gas is $4 a gallon today. That's AAA's national average for regular 13 cents more than a week ago. They keep celebrating a World Cup championship in Spain.
A cacophony of car horns and firecrackers on the streets of Madrid, Spain. Becoming soccer's world champions for only the second time, a cause for national celebration. An altogether different atmosphere in Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires. Officers hit by stones, rioters run from police gunfire and water cannons.
That's Jonathan Savage. Spain beat Argentina 1-0. America's listening to
6:02 is our time, 65 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom with an air quality alert in place for much of this day. A man shot and killed in a fight in the Lincoln Park neighborhood late Sunday night. The fight broke out around 11:45 in the 2200 block of North Lincoln Avenue. During that fight, someone pulled a gun and shot a 30-year-old man. The victim rushed to Advocate Illinois Masonic Medical Center and later pronounced dead. Lake County Police rescued 3 swimmers struggling to stay afloat in a lake on Saturday afternoon. Police say the group had been drinking and was not wearing life jackets when they became separated from a rental boat carrying a bachelor party. A Bellwood police officer is facing a felony charge after prosecutors say he shared confidential information with a criminal suspect he knew. 32-year-old Michael Davis photographed records from a state police database, then sent them to the suspect, who was being investigated for a high-speed chase and shooting at the officer's vehicle. Davis allegedly advised the person to hide or sell the car connected to the case. And a bankruptcy hearing today could determine whether the Hawthorne Racecourse is sold and redeveloped for another use. The track's owners filed for bankruptcy back in February. Chicago sports. The first-place White Sox claimed their 3-game set with the Blue Jays following a 3-0 win in Toronto. Cubs blow out the Twins 10-1, and the Blackhawks extend Connor Bedard 5 years, $75 million. The news, a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. 56david.com, 855-563-2843. Atlantic Coast Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 613114. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Hugh Hewitt has a solution for the birthright citizenship ruling.
A lot of people are passionate about it because Joe Biden broke the border, and there are birth tourism scandals more than you want to know about. And it's something that we ought to prosecute, something that we ought to prevent to the extent of the law possible via visa reform and via what the president has done, which is close the border.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Alex Marlowe at 3 on AM 560. The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
Now that summer is here, it's time for some summer home maintenance.
That's cold!
Hot water issues? Call CenterGuard Plumbing. Right now, get a new 40-gallon atmospheric vent water heater installed for just $1,295 standard installation, or a 50-gallon for $1,395 standard installation with free haul away of your old tank. A proud sponsor of AM 560, you'll save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on tankless and atmospheric vent water heaters with CenterGuard Plumbing. Plus, get 10% off any licensed plumbing contractor competitor's price. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon and they can schedule your repair or install the same day today on in-stock water heaters. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM560 to receive summer special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Do you struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep in a traditional bed? Experience Zecliner, the revolutionary recliner by FlexSteel. The Zecliner was engineered with restful sleep in mind. A healthy life starts with a healthy night's sleep. Zecliner is more than just a recliner, featuring custom power adjustments like recline, headrest, lumbar, heat, massage. It's a personalized comfort experience. Zecliner is a sleep solution backed by FlexSteel's durability that you can trust, delivering unmatched comfort, technology, and support. Discover the Zecliner by FlexSteel at Steinhoffel's.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
What's with the ladder and bowling ball?
I'm testing the unsmushable Qualix Ultra Foam in Penny Mustard's Motion Sectional.
But our foam is already proven to stay supportive and comfortable for the life of the sofa.
Are you also dropping a St. Bernard on the sectional?
No, he's here to rescue me when I fall off the ladder.
The forever comfortable Motion Sectional, American made with a solid wood frame and hundreds of fabric and leather options, starting at just $62.95 at Penny Mustard.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
So the Democratic message for the 2026 midterm is, we don't love America. That's it. The message from the left is, as long as people that we don't like are allowed to win elections, we hate America. That's a heck of a thing to be running an election on. We hate America.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
6:08. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. A stalled semi causing problems on the outbound Eisenhower between Wolf and North Avenue. It was blocking the center lane. They're moving that to the right shoulder as we speak. Accident, Dan Ryan Express lanes inbound at 47th, and an accident on the Bishop Ford, this time on the outbound side, right at Sibley. Traffic, a service of the AM 560 mobile app. Download the app, 560theanswer.com/mobile. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but first, check of our forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will bring a mix of sun and clouds with the possibility of a strong thunderstorm in some areas later this afternoon. Expect reduced air quality due to wildfire smoke with the chance of storms bringing damaging winds and hail. The high temperature will reach 86 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, talking in the first hour about the policies that are being promulgated by these neo-Bolsheviks in charge of America's biggest cities and who have taken over one of the two major parties in this country. Say, wow, that's real cute. They want to, spring a revolution on America and discard the Constitution and abolish the Senate and defund ICE and every other law enforcement agencies and open the borders. Big deal. They're tilting at windmills. Yeah, they won some elections, but come on. Can't happen here. Would you change your mind if you came to understand that they're willing to impose their will in terms of their policy choices through violence, as they've demonstrated, which shouldn't be a particularly jarring statement? But Marco Rubio did the country a great service by formalizing it in the context of a global confab with other Western nations. The Resurgence of Political Terrorism conference that effectively he hosted. His remarks essentially naming names, and it's about time. And putting it into sort of a unified theory of what's happening, that's the key part. Much of this is not particularly new, but it seems new because so few people do it, including conservative talk. Certainly at the office holder level, too few do it. Just sort of pick at the whatever is trending that day on X and make a cause celeb or a bête noire of this person or this statement or that statement. But what's the unified theory to generate understanding of the nature of the threat and how serious it is? Well, this is where Rubio comes in. And he starts with how, which is a good premise to start with, or a good setup, how the West was oriented in terms of their counterterrorism activities, certainly since 9/11. But, we were a little bit slow on the uptake with respect to Islamofascism and terrorist acts coming to the West. And then 9/11 obviously was the horrific wake-up call.
Every country represented here today has disrupted a terrorist threat at some point emanating from this source. Jihadist attacks and plots in the United States are down by 2/3 since ISIS's peak. The number of people killed by jihadist terrorism in Europe dropped by roughly 97% from the year 2015 to the year 2024. In other words, to a very great extent, our counterterrorism strategy has worked. The threat has not disappeared, of course. It will continue to exist, particularly so long as we tolerate immigration systems that imports these threats directly into our respective homelands. But this threat has been severely diminished. The world looks very different today because of it.
It has been severely diminished, but it's sort of, as he intimated, it is on the rebound thanks to immigration policies and thanks to willful blindness. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me give you an example. The day after, I believe this was the day after the taking out of Khamenei, the Iranian Ayatollah, by the Trump administration, of course. This is a preacher, imam. I don't know exactly what his proper title is, and frankly, I don't really care. His name is Hassan Salameh, and he was one of a number of speakers at this mosque the day after Khamenei was taken out, the Shia mosque in Dearborn, Michigan, who had similar things to say to him, and here's what he had to say.
Regardless of the stooge we put at the desk of the Oval Office, Republican or Democrat, or even if 1,000 elections come to pass, it is clear that this country was built for and built by the Epstein class. And that just like Palestine, we live on stolen land when the devil-worshipping Freemasons reached these shores and the Zionist-minded Christopher Columbus came to explore and they genocided the natives. And put the one eye of the devil on their currency to put their plans in full sight. While the Statue of Liberty is actually Lucifer, the demonic bearer holding a torch of light. And their plan is to dominate every land, regardless of borders. As they state, they want to create a new world order. But the Islamic Republic became a thorn in the one eye that gave them post-traumatic stress disorder.
So that was a service to honor Khamenei, the totalitarian Islamist Ayatollah in Tehran after he was taken out, and to, call out the great Satan, which is America, in Dearborn, Michigan. A community that now features, stores like Home Depot with Arabic translations of the signage as you meander through the store to purchase whatever you're going to purchase for your DIY projects. Dearborn, Michigan. So we allow Islamists because if it was a bunch of Zuhdi Jassers, I don't think we'd have a problem with what's going on in Dearborn, Michigan, because what's going on in Dearborn, Michigan wouldn't be going on in Dearborn, Michigan if it was being governed by peaceful pluralist Muslims. But it's not, as we've seen from the mayor, from the city council over several years now. And we're supposed to shrug our shoulders when we lose an American city to Islamists, to people that don't quite say that the Statue of Liberty is Lucifer, don't quite publicly celebrate the life and times of a murderous dictator, but have very similar views foundationally. The rebound. Historian Bill Federer on Europe's future, since they're a little bit ahead of where we are, down the slide I'm talking about. If, as projected, Europe becomes, or Western Europe at least, becomes majority Muslim by 2030?
So they say that by 2030, there will be a majority Muslim population in Europe, and they'll just flat out vote in Sharia law. And it won't just be no-go zones where they take over entire neighborhoods in Paris or around Belgium and London. No, they'll take over entire cities. And people forget, Egypt was completely Christian for 6 centuries. It's not anymore. All of North Africa was completely Christian for 6 centuries. It's not anymore. All in Turkey, all 7 churches mentioned in the book of Revelation were all in Turkey. And they were all taken over by the Muslim Turks. Constantinople was the largest Christian city in the world, and the largest Christian church in the world for hundreds of years was the Hagia Sophia, and it got turned into a mosque, and so they want to do the same thing with the Vatican. And recently they allowed Muslim prayers in the Vatican, so we see that's headed in that direction.
Wow!
And the tremendous number of burning of churches in Europe.
And if you talk about this,
the burning of churches, well, we have that here too. We certainly feature that. Political violence on the left, whether it's burning churches because they're Christian and Catholic, or whether it's burning churches because they're Christian and Catholic after the Dobbs decision. More than 500 churches and pro-family and the offices of pro-family groups were vandalized, firebombed in the wake of the Dobbs decision. Do we remember this? Those are not one-off incidents of lone wolves. That is the work product, whether coordinated or not, of a movement that believes that violence is the means to political ends. And, a little bit of history and historical context would be nice because, as I said, history may not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. The Crusades were a response to 400 years of Islamic Islamic conquering of otherwise Christian nations like, Egypt, for example, Armenia, southern Italy, Cyprus. Federer mentioned Constantinople. Do we have to go through that again? I don't want to overstate the case because there's no need to. I'm just saying, what is the track that we're on with the approach that we're taking? And that's exactly what Bill Federer is talking about with respect to Europe. So we have that to deal with, but that's not all. There is this Islamist feature to it, particularly when you make anti-Semitism the litmus test to be a member of this neo-Bolshevik party, which they have. Going back to Rubio. So that was how counterterrorism, or approach to counterterrorism, was oriented for the last 3 decades. But there was a blind spot.
You will no doubt see the dogma rear its head in the coverage of this very conference. In spite of the clear and the undeniable reality, in spite of the objective numbers and statistics, in spite of the fact that in this room today, there are representatives from across the political spectrum, we will hear this kind of organized violence and terror will be dismissed. It will be dismissed as a partisan fiction. A whole industry grew up in our countries around the study of extremism. We have think tanks and fellowships and journals and consultancies with the unspoken understanding among them that the only kind of political violence that was a true threat to our system, that only one kind of political violence was a true threat to the system. A bomb planted by a neo-Nazi group was a nefarious and murderous act of evil. It is. But a bomb planted by a Marxist revolutionary, well, that's just merely a tragic excess of idealism. Perhaps its means were misplaced or overzealous, but its ends were virtuous and just. That's the implication of how they treat it. For years, this extraordinary ideological prejudice was embedded in the way we talked about political violence and extremism. It was repeated again and again until it was accepted as the neutral and objective baseline, so entrenched in the mainstream conventional wisdom that it came to be regarded as an apolitical fact. It is the reason why, here in my country, so many people in positions of power have repeatedly dismissed acts of violence and even terrorism as legitimate forms of political expression, so long as they served a left-wing cause. It is why during those so-called George Floyd riots in the summer of 2020, as criminals and extremists burned and looted their way through America's great cities and nearly brought the country to its knees, city governments all across the country simply refused to prosecute the people conducting these acts of violence and terror.
Oh, you remember that in Chicago when the city burned twice? And he had to remind those assembled that, at least for many of them, their appeasement of this element didn't insulate them from the viciousness of it, did it?
The coalition in this room today includes political leaders and experts and law enforcement officials from more than 60 countries across the world. You have come here from a wide range of governments, parties, and political persuasions. Some of your governments and ours disagree publicly. Sometimes we disagree sharply about trade, about energy, about immigration. You did not come here today because you have been persuaded on every single aspect of the American view of the world. You came here. You are here because 2 weeks ago, a 72-year-old woman was burned on over 80% of her body in her own home in Greece, and she died, executed by a firebomb because her daughter dared to stand for office. You are here today because for 5 days this winter, the lights went out in Berlin, the longest blackout in the city since the Second World War, sparked by an attack that left tens of thousands of households without power in the freezing cold and left an 83-year-old woman dead. You are here and you came because a month after that Berlin blackout, a French 23-year-old succumbed to traumatic brain injuries, beaten to death on the streets of Lyon by a group of far-left militant thugs. You are here because your political leaders are being attacked and stabbed and shot in your streets, because your businesses have been bombed, because your railways have been sabotaged, because your police officers have been beaten and burned. You are here because this is real, and it is getting worse, and it can no longer be denied, and it can no longer be ignored, because it is time to crush this evil forever.
312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com. Call and text line. An example he didn't give, but I'll give. Nice commentary on it. This is the inability to confront the ills We cannot neither tolerate our ills nor cure them, to borrow from the Roman historian Livy, which is becoming an oft-quoted line because it has wide application. Andrew Lawrence, on the assassination of a former Conservative member of Parliament in the UK, Anne Widdecombe, who was a social conservative, Brexit, and she was murdered by one of these neo-Bolsheviks that we're talking about. And once that was discovered, then the UK press, at least most of the tabloids that are left, lost interest, of course.
It's all gone very quiet, hasn't it? The mainstream media were all too keen to fill their pages and airtime with lurid details of Anne Widdecombe's murder, right up until the point where counter-terrorism police took over the investigation and her alleged killer, 28-year-old Joshua Kerry, was found to be in possession of Russian communist literature and other items of hard-left political ideology during a search of his property, at which point the story mysteriously disappeared. Silence descended.
Yeah, we're familiar with that approach from the D.C. press corps here, aren't we? Again, it's perhaps one standard deviation worse in Western Europe, but just one. Again, going back to Rubio and his speech at the Resurgence of Political Terrorism conference that he led, organized, hosted. What this is that's happening. A revolt of the worst against the best.
It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist or communist or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation. An overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us. The old dogma was wrong. The old dogma was wrong. None of this is driven by idealism. It is not utopian. In fact, it is the opposite. One of the criticisms you sometimes hear of communism, for example, is that it sounds good in theory, but it never works in practice. That's actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. The world it envisions is a world without courage, a world without creativity or ambition, a world without heroes or glory or great causes to strive towards, a world without miracles, without myths, without men who rise above the rest to do incredible and extraordinary things. And the world communism envisions is a world without God. For these architects of revolutionary violence, the towering achievement of our civilization, for them, it's an unbearable humiliation. A reminder of what they cannot do, and a reminder of what they cannot be. So they choose instead to destroy. They attack pipelines, they attack railroads, they attack power grids and laboratories, the physical embodied symbols of power and invention and achievement. This is the nature of the terrorism we face today.
And it is increasingly Islamist in nature. Just as it was in Iran, for example. It wasn't, it was a revolution that was obviously Islamist in nature in 1979 when the Shah was deposed, and included the support of many who were not Islamist in nature. Corey in Woodlawn.
Welcome back, Dan. You know, fighting for liberty has never been easy, but it's going to be even tougher with half of your citizenry not even willing to fight, wanting to fight, or just downright they're just not for the cause. And I admire Marco Rubio, but one thing he said rings true. They're trying to tear down what greater men have built. And that's the sickness sitting here watching this stuff unfold. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, remember, only a third of the colonists supported the revolution against the crown. So it's never going to be a majority thing. It's always going to be motivated minorities. That's the story of history. Motivated minorities change things for good or for bad. The best thing that Rubio said, one of the best things he said was right there when he pierced that idiotic premise that even some on the right say to try to be conciliatory towards these totalitarians. Oh, communism sounds good in theory. No, it doesn't. It sounds terrible in theory. And it's even worse in practice. It is a terrible idea. Jay in Lowell, Indiana.
Yes, hi. I want to comment on this. I think real soon in this country, you're going to see like you see going on in Ireland, vigilante groups getting together to protect us from these Islamists and all these left-wing liberal, I guess, whack jobs, if you want to call them that. And I think we're going to see it in our lifetime, sir.
Thanks for the call, Jay. Well, it depends in part on what the response is from the government, and this is how Rubio concluded his remarks on what the West has to do with respect to counterterrorism, with a focus on leftist-inspired political violence.
We can and we must identify and map this threat and rebuild our counterterrorism architecture to defeat it, just as we have done together before. Now we must do it together again. Through intelligence and information sharing, through coordinated law enforcement strategy, through financial targeting and disruption, we will dismantle these networks brick by brick. It is time for the people of the civilized world to defend ourselves, to stand united against this encroaching darkness and fight for what is ours. It is easy to destroy great things. It is far more difficult to make them. The enemies of civilization are only capable of the former. They are only capable of destroying great things. All they know is destruction. But we have built great things together. We have done it time and again. We know what we must do, and now we must do it.
And we'll see if we have the political will to do it. We'll come back with more on this topic, and we'll fold in the battle in the classroom that I mentioned again earlier in the program at 6:36. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
66 degrees. Skies are clear to start the morning in the QC Kinetics newsroom, but we do have another air quality alert today. A man shot and killed in a fight in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, police tell us. It happened last night around 11:45 in the 2200 block of North Lincoln Avenue. During that fight, someone pulled a gun. A 30-year-old man was hit several times, shot, and then taken to Advocate Illinois Masonic Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead. A man died stabbed Sunday morning in North Chicago. Police say officers found the victim after midnight. The man was taken to an area hospital and later died. Police continue to investigate. Attacks in the Middle East continue after the deaths of 3 American service members. Here's Fox's Trey Yinks.
A 9th consecutive night of U.S. strikes hit Iran. According to U.S. Central Command, a variety of different targets were hit, including Iranian military command centers, surveillance sites, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch positions, and communications networks. The strikes do come after 3 U.S. service members were killed by an Iranian ballistic missile attack in Jordan on Friday. A 4th soldier was killed in northern Iraq during a controlled detonation of an unexploded Iranian drone. President Trump told Fox News last week that if Iran doesn't reach a deal, strikes will escalate this week to hit power plants and bridges.
Also yesterday, White House border czar Tom Homan says he believes body cameras are very important when it comes to ICE-involved shootings.
You can have a cell phone camera from a witness on the side. You can have, city cameras or whatever. But I want the American people to see what that officer sees when he makes the decision, takes an action.
Holman speaking in favor of the cameras on CBS's Face the Nation yesterday. Forecasters are focused on a tropical depression that may turn into Tropical Storm Bertha before the end of the day today. A bankruptcy hearing today could determine whether Hawthorne Racecourse is sold and redeveloped for another use. The track's owners filed for bankruptcy in February, and now a judge is expected to consider that proposed sale. Thousands of civil rights leaders, elected officials, and community members are attending the NAACP National Convention at McCormick Place. At 7:02, you'll hear from Governor J.B. Pritzker, who addressed the crowd yesterday. Chicago sports. White Sox claim their 3-game series with the Blue Jays following a 3-0 win from Toronto. White Sox visit Texas next, while the Cubs beat the Twins 10-1 and host the Tigers later on tonight. The news, a service of the daily podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and the Sean Thompson Show. Subscribe free at 560theanswer.com/podcast. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live on-location broadcast of the Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Class A Insurance, owned by Thomas Iacetta.
It's summer, time to get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather in a brand new scooter from Mars Medical in New Lenox. Come see and test drive their full collection of new and used power mobility devices for sale. Mars Medical carries full and travel size scooters from Pride Mobility and Golden Technologies. Inventory is moving out daily, so don't hesitate to pick out your new scooter today. And don't forget, Mars Medical also has lightweight and compact transport wheelchairs available for sale or rental use for those day trips to the zoo or to the park. Some units weigh as little as 19 pounds. Or improve your outdoor activities with a Rollator walker. Mars Medical has over 7 models of Rollator walkers on the floor for purchase. Make this summer one to remember with help from Mars Medical on the north side of Route 30 between Cedar and Vine Road in New Lenox. Or go to marsmedicalsupply.com. Mars Medical, customer care that is out of this world.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com
or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. President Trump was a guest on my program last week. He put the number of Iranians massacred by the regime over 2 days in January at 52,000. So we know the ruthlessness of the men in charge in Iran. In light of that, it is entirely understandable that the Iranian people are reticent to take to the streets again. And this has become clear. The current public faces of the rump regime in Iran don't have any authority over the killers with the guns. Eli Lake is among the most respected national security reporters in the United States. He explained to me last week how the history of regime collapses tell us we ought to be watching for splits within the ranks of those men with guns. That's how revolutions against dictators begin and then gain momentum. When a cadre see the end game and they don't want to be on the wrong side when everything falls apart. Watch closely. It only takes a few people to crack the whole of the IRGC tyranny. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance.
6:40 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. They've cleaned up an accident this morning. Route 53 and Arboretum Road in Glen Ellen. Accident right shoulder, I-57, now on the inbound side at 111th. Stevenson, an accident reported inbound at Harlem Avenue, gumming up the works, and slow traffic on the outbound Kennedy between Lawrence and Harlem. Traffic, a service of the Chicago Public Schools. This year, Dare to Dream Big with CPS, K through 12, back in class Monday, August 24. Learn more at cps.edu. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but first, check of your forecast. In the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center, partial sunshine. We've checked the radar. Strong thunderstorms crossing from Minnesota into southeast Wisconsin this morning. They're headed our way. Some of those storms could bring some damaging winds, and we'll top out at 86.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is sponsored by Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman. Listen Saturday mornings at 8. Learn more at willsave.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Cause they got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, continuing our conversation about the rise of the neo-Bolsheviks. Marco Rubio punctuating it last week with a speech he gave that we were discussing before Mike Scott's newscast at the Resurgence of Political Terrorism conference that he hosted with, as he mentioned in his remarks, representatives from 60 countries in the West and other regions of the world that want to combat totalitarianism in all its forms, which is a good idea. And as I was saying when we left off, you know, my favorite part of his speech was his rejecting the shibboleth that communism is a good idea in theory. It's a terrible idea in theory. It fundamentally misunderstands the nature of man, and it rejects God. It is sentimental barbarism to those whose antennae are properly tuned. And that ends, as Flannery O'Connor said, in the gas chamber. And frankly, whether it's godless communism or Islamist totalitarianism, both end with mass graves. And that's where these people that we're profiling, that he's referencing, will take us, because they believe in political violence as the means to their desired ends, which is revolution, ending America. That's not me saying it, it's them saying it. They say it. Hassan Piker, dressed in full Mao cosplay garb at the College Democrats. Why do they even bother with the Democrat label anymore? Call yourself what you are. Truth in labeling. The College Democrats conference, Hassan Piker, you know, this popular privileged, again, he didn't go to Ivy League. I think he went to like Boston or Rutgers, I think. Anyway, but you know, the next piece of this discussion is what's the pipeline? Where are these people coming from? They're coming from places like Hassan Piker came from to say things like this.
No more to Trumpism, but no more to the Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, and who betray us. No more to the fascist reactionaries, but no more to the Democrats who will collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel, who will help poison the planet, who will stiff workers and help bosses. We don't need those Democrats anymore. In fact, we have a message. We are coming. We are unbossed. We're unbought. We're unbound. And we will become undeniable.
312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com. Call and text line. The battle is in the classrooms. Randy Weingarten, that shrew-looking person who heads up the American Federation of Teachers, at their confab, which is almost indistinguishable from the college Dems. Perhaps more hysterical is the only difference. Weingarten's on the program. So the largest teachers unions in the country on the program.
Enormous power, but this is what they don't have: the power of the people. That is the power and potential of our movement and of the AFT. Oh, and one more thing. We get done.
And the blank that they're getting done, things like passing a resolution declaring May 1st, May Day, communist inspired, a day of civic action for political protests nationwide. It's not just for Chicago anymore. Not that it was just for Chicago, but they want students to do trainings, political education, marches, and rallies. This is the resolution they passed at their confab. They're no different than the most intemperate things you're hearing from these out and proud neo-Bolsheviks, like Christopher Winston, who we've brought you before, who is a senior level person in DSA.
Armed struggle is the highest form of struggle. So these people that are doing all these horrible things, they need to be suppressed. They need to be suppressed. There is no free marketplace, free exchange of ideas with the enemy.
We're going to bring you to people's justice. We're going to execute you after the revolution. What a lot of comrades do is they try to live vicariously through the struggles of other people, forgetting that our purpose is to make revolution here in the United States and actually get this albatross from around the neck of the world's people.
One thing about Maoists, when we say protracted people's war, we mean protracted. We will literally fight you for 100 years.
What violence? Somebody popping the tires on a Waymo or somebody burning a Waymo is not political violence.
The Democrats are objective enemies. They're enemies of Palestinian people. They're enemies of black people. They're enemies of immigrants.
If everybody at DSA was like you guys, we would have the revolution tomorrow.
Revolutionary violence is universal law. That's how this country was founded. That's how revolutionary China was founded. That's how you got the ability to do every single thing you do. You're able to knock on doors for Zeron because 150, 200, I don't want to go see American Revolution, 200, 250 years ago, whatever.
No settler colonial state has the right to exist. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. They don't. They don't have the right to exist. Okay? That is why everybody making under $50,000 a year should be given a rifle and a little red book.
Maoism is authoritarian and suppresses the people like in Tiananmen Square. Okay, so what does authoritarianism mean? Maoism, well, people that say this are halfway right. So, yes, when it comes to people like fascists, when it comes to people like the police, when it comes to people like anybody who dares raise a hand to the proletariat, who dares raise a hand to queer people, who dares raise a hand to an immigrant, yes, we are authoritarian. Those people need to be stopped by any means necessary.
I'm not going to say the thing about a landlord because who knows who's listening. Go out and send a strongly worded letter to your landlord tonight.
Strongly worded letter in the form of a very hot piece of metal. Peace.
Send a strongly worded letter to your landlord in the form of a very hot piece of metal. Rifle and a red book. Is there anything unclear about what Mr. Winston is saying as a representative of the ascendant element within one of America's two major parties? 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. In the schools, that's the pipeline. May 1st, day of action nationally. AFD demands it. Vice Chair of the West Hartford Public Schools, Connecticut Board of Education, a woman named Toya Fernandez. So yes, America's 250th may feel like a celebration to you, but to me it's like celebrating a nightmare that built the country that created the conditions for white privilege that allow you to turn a blind eye and be annoyed that I even mentioned it? Would you celebrate the historic beginning of the Holocaust or other genocides and atrocities? Vice President of the West Hartford Public Schools. You can only imagine how many people share her views that were at that AFT conference and that are coming back to Illinois to teach your kids. It's not just in Chicago. Should we go through what we're all forced to fund at the university level? For all the efforts at the beginning of the Trump administration with respect to punishing schools that allowed for anti-Semitism to flourish on campus, that allowed for violence, no-go zones for Jews on campus from Columbia to UCLA. Craziness. And the university presidents that got sacked as a result only because of public pressure, not because of a real internal revolt against tolerating that sort of barbarism on campus. Because who's on campus? Again, the pipeline. The pipeline. You know, Zoran Mamdani's dad, he's an academic. Have you heard or read some of his musings on political violence? Mahmoud Mamdani?
We should not be fixated on a single tactic. We also learned that violence and non-violence are not opposites.
Popular position.
We learned that every liberation movement feels at one point or another to resort to violence, but at the same time it is only successful if it does not embrace the violence unconditionally.
Yes,
We learned that in South Africa. The only reason Mandela was successful is because he was preceded by a violent movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ANC, communists in South Africa, but I digress. That's not the point. Specific example, though there are endless specific examples of the ravages imposed on people by totalitarian governments in all forms. It's that violence and nonviolence are not opposites when it comes to achieving your political ends. So where do you think young Zoran is coming from? And on campus, there's this good X account if you want to follow. Niz Nelly 3 is her account. I think it's a her. And she's documents all of these subversives in the professorate on college campuses around the country who need to be part of that counterterrorism refocusing and infrastructure building that Marco Rubio spoke about last week. For example, Timothy Sands is the president of Virginia Tech. He makes $925,000 plus, another $400,000 in bennies. He allowed a former Columbia University professor, Mohammed Abdu, to speak to VTech students on his tour called, quote, Death to the Academy. Well, professors like this are what is killing the academy. But anyway, here are some quotes from Professor Abdu, invited by the president of Virginia Tech to address the student body of Virginia Tech. One example. I believe in Islam that hates America. These are quotes. Goddamn America. Be proud of your hate for America. I believe in jihad. I appreciate Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Preach to students on a federally funded campus. Abdu is a Canadian citizen. Why is he here? Virginia Tech, thanks to the research by Niz Nelly, $432 million in federal funding, 26-27. Go on. Georgetown professor Badar Khan Suri from India, not a citizen of the United States, arrested by ICE for alleged ties to Hamas and promoting propaganda immediately after October 7th, released by one of Biden's judges, son-in-law of a former Hamas official, still at Georgetown. Still at Georgetown. He travels the country speaking at events, trashing America, and lying about ICE. How is that not a foreign influence operation? Even if it's one man, but it's not. Academic after academic, institution after institution, she's documenting, as we have before. I mean, this is not new, but it takes on a renewed importance, doesn't it, when you put it in the context of everything else we're seeing in electoral politics, as nicely outlined by Marco Rubio last week. Joe in Naperville.
Yeah, I was going to say something else, but this Winston and everybody else, how is this stuff not treason? Let's look at what people did on January 6th and how they were lambasted and put through the prosecution. But these people are calling for the death and taking up arms against America. They got to have a January 6th type committee to look at these people and get rid of these idiots.
Thanks for the call, Joe. Jim in Palatine.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I'm proud to say I've just recently relocated to South Dakota, so I feel a little bit freer, but I'm back taking care of some business. But, so I grew up in Jefferson Park on the northwest side, and Our Lady of Victory Church, historic building, is still there, closed by the Archdiocese, is in talks to be sold to an Islamic community center group to put up a high school to teach this type of propaganda and all this hate against America right here in the middle of Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that Our Lady of Victory on the sales block, and there's some Islamic center expressing interest. And I know there's a petition circulating to the Alderman Gardner and to the Arch. I don't know what currency that will have. But yeah, I mean, that's to say, your backyard. Where are the battles? Who and with whom? The pipelines are colleges and these government unions. So the battles are at the local government level, your schools, your local governments, and up to your state governments in some instances. That's where the battles are. If you want another, again, prosperous 250 and another 250 years of representative republicanism and all the freedoms guaranteed in our founding documents that this group would discard with a snap of a finger if they could.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Don't miss Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn every Sunday from 11 to 12. Robert has a different way of looking at retirement from most financial advisors and is happy to share his ideas with you every week. So don't miss what he has to say on AM 560 The Answer. Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn, Sunday mornings from 11 to 12.
AM 560 The Answer.
All right, coming up at 7:07, we'll talk to Stephen Bucci, former Special Forces officer. Weekly conversation with Stephen Bucci on the state of the war in Iran with renewed strikes there, vigorous strikes, and the death of 3 soldiers over the weekend as well. Stephen Bucci at 7:07. It's now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
The War Department identifies 2 dead American soldiers. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Killed in Iran's Friday attacks in Jordan. Army First Lieutenant Tyler Fien from Eva Beach, Hawaii. Private Isabella Gonzalez of Carrollton, Texas.
And it's heartbreaking, and our hearts go out to these families. These are heroes that pay the ultimate price.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio also says he hopes the U.S. and Iran can get back to nuclear negotiations, but for a 9th straight night, the U.S. bombed Iran.
Punishments for the specific IRGC factions that have targeted U.S. air bases, including that base in Jordan that proved to be so deadly. The Pentagon confirming this weekend that the 2 U.S. service members were killed, leaving a third missing, though unidentified remains have been found. That person is still unidentified at this time.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff at the White House. Another service member killed Saturday.
That separate death took place in northern Iraq and occurred, according to the Pentagon, during controlled detonation of an Iranian drone.
Russia and Ukraine are still warring. Fox's Jonathan Savage has an update.
Moscow's mayor says Ukraine fired more than 400 drones towards the Russian capital. Sergei Sobyanin claims most were intercepted early on in their flight and 85 were brought down near the city. It was a blitz that came hours after Russia targeted Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kyiv, with ballistic missiles.
At least 6 Ukrainians were killed in those attacks. In Britain, a changing of the guard.
My work is done.
Keir Starmer went to King Charles and formally resigned as Prime Minister this morning, and then Andy Burnham replaced him.
I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government.
Burnham is their 7th Prime Minister in 10 years.
Britain needs to show the world that we can regain our stability.
Oil prices are down this morning almost 2%, but the recent rise back up has gas at $4 a gallon again. That's AAA's national average this morning for regular, 13 cents more than last Monday. America's listening to Fox News.
64 degrees. Sunshine this morning and an air quality alert in effect. We see that in our QC Kinetics newsroom this morning. We're also watching developments on the north side of Chicago, where a man died after a gang was roaming down the roadway about 11:45 last night when gunfire broke out on the north side of Chicago. Chicago police continue to investigate that. Meantime, Lake County sheriffs are investigating after 2 were critically injured in a crash that involved a moped in the far north suburbs on Sunday afternoon. Around 1:45, Lake County sheriffs say a man riding a Honda moped and a passenger were struck by a Chevy Malibu who swerved into southbound lanes and struck that moped. Lake County police rescued 3 swimmers struggling to stay afloat in a lake Saturday afternoon. Police say the group had been drinking and was not wearing life jackets when they became separated from a rental boat involved in a bachelor party. Illinois State Senator Chris Balkema says this morning True Value's decision to relocate its headquarters from Chicago to Fort Wayne, Indiana, reflects broader concerns he is now hearing from many businesses about the state's regulatory environment and taxes.
True Value didn't move because they need a geography change or want to be located in the Sun Belt of Florida or something. They just want relief.
Balkema, a Republican from Channahon, says the move was a sign the state and Governor J.B. Pritzker need to reconsider how to approach business. Thousands of civil rights leaders, elected officials, and community members attended the NAACP National Convention at McCormick Place. Politicians like J.B. Pritzker went there looking for votes.
When it was written, we the people excluded enslaved people, excluded women, excluded countless Americans whose humanity was denied. From the very beginning, our nation was marked by that profound contradiction.
The 5-day convention continues through Wednesday. First place White Sox beat the Blue Jays 3-0. They visit Texas next. Cubs blew out the Twins 10-1. They host Detroit tonight. Ryan Fox wins the British Open. Spain, World Cup champions. The news, a service of Steiner Homes. Building homes is more than a business, it's a calling. Family-owned and dedicated to building custom homes with care, integrity, and craftsmanship you can trust. SteinerHomesLTD.com. Northwest Indiana's leading home builder. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Alex Marlow sees the true colors.
The left really hates this country, and now you're seeing them openly advocate for things that are just deeply anti-American, just in terms of all of our founding principles. We're of many one type of country. It's on every coin, and that's where they're at, and they want to gerrymander based on race, and it's the Republicans who are saying you can't do that in Louisiana. I feel like I've been witnessing this my entire adult life, but I feel like now they're announcing it.
The Alex Marlow Show. Afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
Welcome back to Ask Hassleus. I'm Weston. What's your question?
This is Captain Baker from the Sheriff's Office.
Hello, officer.
We have a report of missing employees at Hassleus Mattress.
That's right.
You're confessing?
Yes, I'm confessing that Hassleus Mattress showrooms are employee-free.
Come again?
Shop for Beautyrest and Sealy Posturepedic without commission-crazy salespeople breathing down your neck.
Sounds suspicious.
That's how we keep our prices way low.
How low?
Others sell a Beauty Sleep by Beautyrest Queen Elm Cove A mattress for $1,599. But Hassleus has it for just $794. Plus, similar savings on Sealy Posturepedic and more.
That's criminally low.
And through Monday, trade in your old mattress and take $248 off a queen and $348 off a king.
You wouldn't lie to a cop, would you?
Free next day delivery, too.
Dispatch, I need a police escort for a Hassleus Mattress delivery truck to my house.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hassleus.com.
Do you struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep in a traditional bed? Experience Zecliner, the revolutionary recliner by FlexSteel. The Zecliner was engineered with restful sleep in mind. A healthy life starts with a healthy night's sleep. Zecliner is more than just a recliner, featuring custom power adjustments like recline, headrest, lumbar, heat, massage. It's a personalized comfort experience. Zecliner is a sleep solution backed by FlexSteel's durability that you can trust, delivering unmatched comfort, technology, and support. Discover the Zecliner by FlexSteel at Steinhofels.
I'm David Ortiz. When I lost my mom, she was only 46, and I lost my dad to cancer. It was the worst pain I ever felt. It made me think, what will happen with the people I love when my time is up? That's why I have life insurance. Ethos makes it easy. It's all online, take about 10 minutes, and you can get up to $3 million in coverage.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/save. That's ethos.com/save. Paid testimonial. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Joint pain is awful when you're the person fighting through it, but I'm betting you aren't the only one affected. Maybe you love someone who struggles with joint pain. It's summer, time to be outside, moving and playing. But you or your loved one is sitting it out again. Hey, it's Dan Proft here. Get your life back. Talk with my friends at QC Kinetics. That's what's happening every day at QC Kinetics. Patients are finding real relief in their hips, knees, shoulders, and backs thanks to regenerative treatment done in the office by Dr. Caravelli and the QC Kinetics medical team. No surgery, no long recovery, just real relief. Inflammation eases, the pain lets go. I've seen the results. QC Kinetics patients are happy and wish they would have done it sooner. If you're living with chronic joint pain and want an alternative to surgery, contact my friends at QC Kinetics, longtime sponsors of AM 560. Consultations are free. Weekend appointments are available. Schedule an appointment today by calling 312-827-6261. Again, 312-827-6261. Once more, that phone number, 312-827-6261.
7:09, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Trouble spots on the Stevenson. You have an accident on the right-hand shoulder inbound at Harlem, and then you're slow from Harlem all the way into Kedzie this morning. Delays as well on the Reagan I-88 eastbound between York and the Tri-State. Route 53 jams up from the Ike all the way up to Kirchhoff. Traffic, a service of the AM 560 store. T-shirts, hoodies, and more when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. But now a check of your forecast. in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will feature partly sunny skies with the possibility of a strong thunderstorm in some areas late this afternoon. Expect reduced air quality due to wildfire smoke with the potential for storms to bring damaging winds and hail. The high temperature will reach 86 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Well, Lee Smith had it exactly right when he described the MOU before the details were released, and how Vance was riding point and anticipated how that would go, and it went just about as well as he thought it would, which is to say, not well. Which was my immediate reaction, too, as we discussed for the last several weeks, particularly when Vance said things that were just impossible to believe. Frankly, insulting to one's intelligence, like the idea that the Iranians had turned over a new leaf and were ready to reject the last 47 years of their existence as a mistaken approach to relations with the United States. Sorry. We have to call things as they are. That was a ridiculous statement. Statements. Lee Smith writing in Tablet again, where things stand. The White House's Iran strategy looks out of sync, not because it's a sophisticated ploy to keep Tehran off guard. The United States is a superpower and doesn't have to devise some convoluted Levantine strategy to catch a mouse. The policy looks haphazard because the president has not decided to take back what has been under U.S. control for nearly a century. Trump has not decided, not yet anyway, on winning. And he's talking about the Strait. He goes on to say, the Iranian officials who have so far survived Operation Epic Fury are likely to be more certain of victory now than ever before, since the regime has already absorbed very serious blows. It's difficult to see how hitting them more and hitting them harder will make any difference unless Trump decides to strike Iranians at what has long been understood to be their center of gravity, the Strait of Hormuz. A journalist asked Vance, this is Lee Smith's writing, journalist asked Vance in the press briefing last week if that wasn't essentially the condition the administration had created with its phony ceasefires, fruitless negotiations, and tit-for-tat exchanges of fire. The question of quote-unquote forever wars. Vance's response, so far the Iranians are not showing any signs of wanting to give what you want them to give, said the journalist. That's the journalist, addressing Vance. The plan right now is basically when they misbehave to keep bombing. Vance disagreed, saying it's not a forever war if Iranians violate the terms of an agreement and shoot commercial shipping, and we respond to it. As Lee Smith writes, that was the vice president's response, seemingly without understanding he was just rephrasing the question the journalist had put to him. Lee Smith goes on this matter of forever wars, which has divided MAGA to some extent. That's precisely the stuff America's forever wars have been made of. The continuation of hostilities without defining victory and making decisive moves to obtain it. The reason America doesn't win wars is not that it wants to turn tribal confederations into liberal democracies or teach surrealism to veiled schoolgirls or sow corruption abroad and reap the profits. Those are all effects of the fundamental problem, which is deciding, for whatever reasons, not to win. For Trump, the choices are stark. Either preside over another American war without resolve and go down in history as the American president who forfeited America's post-war birthright and lost the Strait, or decide to win. Some of the military analysts on Fox News didn't put it in those terms exactly, but suggested there is a path, but it requires, as Lee Smith is saying, decisiveness. Here's retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg.
Neutralize both of those as strategic targets, either by occupation or whatever it's going to take. You basically control their economy. If you control their economy, I think they start to break. You're looking at strategic targets. You're not talking about a ground invasion of Iran. You can't get there. It's too hard to do. The country is too large. I've seen war games on that. You just can't get to it. So if he does something strategically, and he takes these targets out, being Kharg Island and the Straits of Hormuz.
And retired General Jack Keane offered other things that can be done.
Is we can put more pressure on the Iranians by going after their national infrastructure. Some of that was discussed right here. And that's power plants, it's energy sources, it's airports, it's ports. You want to also isolate Iran completely from the countries that surround it, that they're trading with and getting things out and getting things in, because so much is being denied from them at sea. So there's a lot of things that can be done here to bend them to our will. In the minds of both military commanders on the IDF and CENTCOM, we had about 2 weeks to finish it. And that's still out there. I think the sooner we finish it, the sooner we end the problem with oil prices and the rest of it. The longer we drag this out, the longer you have that problem existing. I'm not minimizing the problem. I think, listen, political objectives, economic objectives are real issues. Every president has to contend with them. And how you balance that against military objectives and dealing with this regime is the president's decision, and I respect that decision. But there is a means here. We can finish these guys and put them in a place where they're on the pathway to collapse. And I think we're on the pathway now.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us as always.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So what about what Lee Smith said? It's up to Trump right now to decide if he wants to win or go down as the American president who forfeited America's post-war birthright and lost the strait. And if you agree with that formulation, then what do you have to say about the observations of Kellogg and Keane?
Well, I don't agree 100% with Lee. I think he's being a little dramatic. He's a wonderful writer, and he was writing very emotionally there. I think we do need to finish it. I think that is the way forward. I never had a lot of faith in an ability to do it by negotiations with the present regime that's there. Those guys are just too much of true believers who are willing to die and take their whole nation with them because they think they're doing what God wants them to do. It's a little, they don't negotiate things like that away. So I think the whole thing about America's birthright for the last 100 years, no offense, we don't have a birthright to the Straits of Hormuz, but we controlled it after the war,
right?
In World War II, and it made sense to keep it. It's never been Iran's. That was, to suddenly make that a negotiating point was kind of nutty. But as we talked about before, the president really wanted to do this with negotiations rather than just obliterate the country. Again, this idea that because we're still fighting now, we're somehow in a forever war. No offense to all these people who come up with that nonsense, but wars don't get over with in 2 weeks, hardly anywhere. You can go in and do a raid in less than 2 weeks, but if you're talking about significant strategic objectives, it's not going to happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
anybody who says if it goes beyond that, we're in some sort of
forever war, right?
But forever war. That's just stupid.
Well, but here's the thing, though: the president has created that problem to some extent because it was for 4 or 5 weeks, and this thing is over. And then while negotiations were going on, he's not formally, but rhetorically rolling out the mission accomplished banner over and over again. And so, it's an expectations game. And he created those expectations significantly. The other thing I want to get you to respond to is, how many weeks does it take to figure out that this is not going anywhere? The gay Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, on his X account, whoever writes for him, the repeated breaches of the agreement by the great Satan regarding the MOU signed by the presidents of Iran and the U.S. have once again laid bare a fundamental truth. The signature of the U.S. president is utterly worthless and devoid of credibility, blah, blah, blah. But then Arghachi, the foreign minister, said to, now this is, state-run TV, so you take it with a grain of salt, everything that comes there, but it's an interesting thing to say, saying that he hasn't actually talked to Khamenei, who was reportedly out of the country. So now we were negotiating all this time with somebody who's not even talking to ostensibly the guy in charge, and all of it feels like a game of whack-a-mole anyway, because they're the idea that there's some moderate element that is trying to force its way through the thicket of extremists to get a deal with the United States that they'll abide was ridiculous from the face. So this was 2 months of this pointless back and forth.
I'm with you on that. I think this was not a worthwhile effort. The president, who, you're right, he does declare victory over and over again. That's a bad habit. That's not good public relations, and it's darn sure not good policy. I think we need to, as we've done in the last 9 days, we need to turn up the heat. We need to expand the target list beyond just the stuff on the straits. We're still not sinking every vessel that comes off of the shore, anything that can shoot missiles or anything like that. Why we allow that to continue, I don't know. I think that's a bad policy. Same with anything that flies. We should have enough assets there to make sure that anything that flies, whether it's a Radio Shack drone or something bigger or a missile, it should get shot down as soon as it gets launched. We can have that kind of coverage, but we don't seem to be willing to do that. I think going after the infrastructure, as General Keane talked about, it's time. And frankly, the reason for not doing that prior to this is we wanted that stuff to be there so when the Iranian people can be back in charge, they don't have to rebuild everything. Right now, I think the Iranian people would be thrilled to see all that infrastructure go down if it gets rid of this regime.
Well, so
and
that
we need to come to that same conclusion.
So that's with respect to essentially destroying Kharg Island, to taking it and occupying it, or more likely destroying it. And that's another question too. If the energy secretary is right, Chris Wright was on This Week yesterday saying that there are about 14 million barrels a day coming out of the Gulf between the pipeline workarounds, as well as ships that are still moving through the strait, and now that America is reasserting itself, will be moving through the strait. So we're about 2/3 of post-conflict levels. So if we're that close in this context, then why would you hesitate to further isolate the Iranians and take away their means of self-sustainability? And that would seemingly include taking out Kharg Island.
Yeah, I don't know why not. I would have done it a while ago, and I think that we should do it now. And not just Kharg Island. I mean, there's other infrastructure that is there that can put more pressure on the regime. It will have some effect on the civilian population, but it's not exclusively civilian targeting. It's not like the Iranians hit a desalination plant in Kuwait. That's kind of a little sketchy. But the bridges, the electrical production, all that stuff, that's fair game. And we should be hitting that, because as we do that, that one, pressures the government, but two, energizes the people to realize the government, their own government, are the ones that are screwing them here.
Well,
and they need to rise up.
Well, the hitting the desalination plant in Kuwait is raises the issue you sort of raised before, which is what exactly is their capacity to retaliate, and why haven't we taken out whatever's remaining with respect to that capacity? Because desalination plants in the Middle East are sort of important when you don't have access, when you don't have rain and you don't otherwise have access to water in country like Iran does. And that's the situation with a lot of these Gulf countries. So that could be debilitating for our erstwhile Gulf state allies if that was allowed to continue, or there wasn't some sort of coordinated response to that threat. And so what is the problem in your estimation? I mean, do they have launchers that are sort of shrouded in civilian areas that we're worried about mass civilian casualties if we go after their ballistic missile launch areas, or what is it? Why can't, if we have air superiority, then why can't we lay all of this bare and take it out?
It's when you're down to the level that they're down to, they're not like batteries of missiles that are easily spotted, or they're 1 and 2 missile kind of packages that are mobile and spread around. And, it's not impossible to hide them, but it's also not that easy to find them when they're down to this level. When they were at 100%, they're everywhere. Targets are kind of easy to find. Now they're down. I think they estimate at about, probably 85 to 90% attrition. That 10%, it's not that much to hide in a big country.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to target them, but they're not that tough to hide.
President Trump wanted congressional Republicans to include Iran in the Russia sanctions bill that was supported by Lindsey Graham, and sort of a do it for Lindsey with both of them, Russia and Iran. Is there a new series of sanctions that would be particularly impactful in your estimation, as it pertains to both, but specifically Iran?
They should close down any loopholes that are left, any bennies that they got along the way, either in the past or recently. All should be shut down. They should be allowed no commerce with anyone that we can stop. And anybody who does business with them, we should go after them and sanction them, because that's the only way to stop people from doing that. And then the embargo, the physical blocking of their ability to go in and out, needs to get ramped up even higher so that nothing goes through. And again, if it's got an Iranian flag on it, or we know it's really an Iranian ship, but it's got somebody else's flag, we should either capture it or take it out.
What do you make of this report circulating that Iran is seriously considering a ground incursion into Kuwait to seize U.S. military bases, trying to expand the war?
They could try that, but their ground forces have proven to be pretty inept. That the Iraqis beat them before. They really don't have. They've not spent a lot on their regular ground forces. All of their money goes to the IRGC, which is much smaller and much more focused on internal repression than actually fighting a war. So I don't think they have the capability to do that. And they know if they did, they would very quickly, with us not having to go into Iran, they would lose that military force probably in total within a day or two.
Would that if they did invade Kuwait, would that require a ground forces response from us?
Not initially, no. You could just take them out from standoff as they tried to come in. But eventually, I think we'd probably go in and make sure there was nothing left on the other side of the border.
Mm-hmm. On the 3 soldiers who were killed over the weekend, what if anything should we do? I mean, I understand nothing is fail-safe here, but what should we do with respect to our bases in places like Jordan and other Gulf states that are clearly being targeted by Iran, which of course we knew from the beginning?
We need to just make sure we've got as much air defense capability in there as we can get. as much detection capability, all of our AWACS aircraft, that sort of thing. Maybe we need to upgun that a little bit to make sure we can spot and take out anything that Iran shoots at any of our bases, and just defend it more effectively. We're pretty good at that, but occasionally things get through. A couple of those guys were hurt dealing with a drone that was actually already shot down.
Yeah, right. Detonating a drone.
That's unfortunate.
I wanted to get your response to quickly to something else too. We talked for an hour about it before you joined us, and that was Rubio's speech at the Resurgence of Political Terrorism conference last week, in which he said, among other things, this is what's required for counterterrorism agencies and coordinated operations among Western countries with respect to the threat that leftist-inspired violence poses.
These are not distinct and isolated cells. They are interconnected networks. They do not recognize our borders. They do not believe, in fact, in the nation state itself. They coordinate, they communicate, they travel, they train, and they act together, sharing the same infrastructure, sharing the same enemies, sharing the same mission. Antifa militants and their comrades travel from across Europe and to the Americas to participate in each other's attacks, to funnel propaganda and training materials and target information through shared encrypted channels, moving through underground networks of safe houses and finance, and sustain their operations through transnational funds.
And so Rubio's point is that essentially is that we need to reorient and really expand our counterterrorism interdiction with respect to leftist violence. It's not just, it is still Islamist in nature, but it's not just Islamist in nature.
I think he's spot on with that. You have to be a little careful because you could take from his remarks that they're like, is it some sort of international council of bad guys somewhere sitting coordinating all this. There really isn't that. There is a lot of cooperation. There's people calling one another. There's a lot of mutual support, but it's not quite as cohesive as one could imply from Rubio's remarks. The secretary's a great speaker. He can be very dramatic too, but I would not, put that level on it. There's not all the James Bond villains sitting around a table figuring out how to do all this stuff. There's a bunch of groups who are chasing their interests, and where those interests coincide with another group's interests, they work together.
Right. I mean, well, it's sort of like we talked about with respect to Islamist terrorist cells for the last 25 or 35 years, which is part of the challenge is they're decentralized. And that's sort of the same thing here.
Exactly.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com. Angelin.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 7:37, we'll talk to former BBC foreign correspondent Ian Williams about Trump's speech on election integrity from last week, and among other things, the Chinese Communist Party's Operation Dragon Bridge. That's at 7:37. Now we check the headlines.
7:35, 66 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom. There's an air quality alert remaining in effect through Monday evening. A man shot and killed in a fight in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. That fight broke out around 11:45 in the 2200 block of North Lincoln Avenue last night. Someone pulled a gun and shot a 30-year-old man. That victim was rushed to nearby Advocate Illinois Masonic Medical Center and later pronounced dead. 2 people were injured in a crash involving a moped in the far northern suburbs Sunday afternoon. The crash happened around 1:45 at Delaney Road and Zupek Drive in Wandsworth. President Trump wants Iran included in a Russia sanctions bill. And the Pentagon has released the names of 2 more American soldiers killed in the conflict with Iran. Here's Fox's Jonathan Savage.
First Lieutenant James Tyler Feehan and Private Isabella Gonzalez were killed in an Iranian attack in Jordan last week. They died defending against Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks. First Lieutenant Feehan was 25 and from Eva Beach, Hawaii. Private Gonzalez, just 19, came from Carrollton, Texas. A third U.S. soldier is missing, but remains have been found. The latest fatality took place in northern Iraq when an American service member was killed during the controlled detonation of an Iranian drone. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
Forecasters say Tropical Depression 2 will become Tropical Storm Bertha before the end of the day. The death toll from 2 earthquakes in Venezuela has grown to more than 5,200. Meantime, a powerful earthquake overnight ripped through Peru in the Andes region, killing at least 5, leaving hundreds displaced. And Paws Chicago is expanding outside the city to the northwest suburbs. The animal shelter broke ground late yesterday afternoon on the Rescue Ranch in Hawthorne Woods, a 20-acre property, a former equestrian center that Paws will transform into a rescue, adoption, and education campus. Chicago sports. First place White Sox claimed their 3-game set with the Blue Jays following a 3-0 win. They visit Texas next, while the Cubs blew out the Twins 10-1 and they host Detroit. Later on tonight, the Blackhawks extend Connor Bedard 5 years, $75 million. The news service of the AM 560 mobile app. Download the app at 560theanswer.com/mobile. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Class A Insurance, owned by Thomas Iacanta.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from Big Wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250. Say Mike Rowe and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250. Say Mike Rowe and let the savings begin.
Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today.
Hey, it's Sean Thompson. You know, one day it's market volatility. The next day it's conflict overseas. Price jumps, confidence drops, and suddenly retirement feels less certain. When the latest headline pushes costs higher and stokes inflation fears, it can have a ripple effect on your investments and your budget. But here's the thing. Retirement shouldn't depend on perfect timing or on the latest geopolitical noise. Tom Fortino and the Alpha Wealth Group help families right here in the Chicago area build a plan to create income you can't outlive, control taxes, minimize risk, protect your assets, and prepare an estate and legacy plan. It's their 5-pillar retirement planning. Ready to learn more? To get your complimentary retirement roadmap and a retirement analysis today, schedule a meeting with Tom Fortino and the people of Alpha Wealth Group by calling 630-864-6711. That number again, 630-864-6711, or online at alphawealthgroup.com.
If moving safely around your home is a concern, you deserve clear answers, not a sales pitch. Access will help you improve home accessibility with practical solutions like lifts, grab bars, and home modifications, designed to fit your home, your needs, and budget. Experienced professionals will take the time to explain your options so you can make an informed decision. If staying safe and comfortable in your home matters to you, start with a free in-home consultation. Call Access at 630-616-6249 or visit allaboutaccess.com.
A riddle brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What do your home and auto have in common? Progressive protects them both. It was an easy riddle. Learn more at progressive.com.
King Hochberg Traffic Center time. Metra North Central Service commuters. There's a train stopped at Wheeling this morning after a pedestrian was struck, and trains are halted in both directions for the moment. Delays on the Stevenson. You've got a disabled vehicle, left lane blocked, outbound at King Drive. Also have stop-and-go delays on the inbound side, Harlem into Kedzie. The Ike, report of an accident, left lane blocked, inbound at Harlem Avenue. Traffic, a service of ExpressPros.com. Your logistics business moves fast. Is your team keeping up? Express Employment Professionals connects you with qualified talent fast. Visit ExpressPros.com for an office near you. Express Employment Professionals, respecting people, impacting business. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Partial sunshine. There could be a late day thunderstorm. And again, that air quality a bit reduced today. We'll have a high near 86.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hour is brought to you by Retirement Decoded with Scott Tucker and Amy Jacobson. Heard Sunday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. Learn more at retirementdecoded.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So President Trump spent a lot of time talking about Chinese Communist Party efforts to interfere with the 2020 election. His good buddy Xi, that he has such a great relationship with. This is in pertinent part what Trump had to say, and documents released to this effect to buttress these claims somewhat on Chinese Communist Party election sabotage operations.
The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. they did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also,
he also talked about the raw intel from the FBI that was more specific in terms of Chinese communist aims, manufacturing ballots.
These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political.
The FBI agent he's talking about is former Deputy Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, Nikki Flores, who we'll address in a second with our next guest. I think there's a missed opportunity in that speech for Trump. There's a couple. I think our next guest has one of them. The other one I would suggest is with respect to the Hunter Biden laptop and the 51 who said it was a Russian disinformation campaign. I mean, had all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. I want to get to that as well. But this, of course, was all the predicate to say Congress needs to pass the Save America Act. And on that score, here's the latest, greatest effort instigated by the House, trying to get the Senate to go along kicking and screaming. House Budget Committee Chairman Jody Arrington on passing the Save America Act as part of a reconciliation bill and hoping that J.D. Vance is there to cast the tie-breaking vote as needed.
Well, you'll have the presiding officer as our vice president, so I believe you will. Even if you lost a couple of Republicans, I can't imagine why anybody would oppose an 80-20 issue and basic safeguards like voter ID. But even if we lost 2 or 3 Republicans, with the vice president in the chair, we can do it. Also, they may have voted, the Republicans in the Senate who opposed it may have opposed it on procedural grounds because they didn't want to nuke the filibuster. You don't have to do that in reconciliation. We just have to make a material budget impact argument to the parliamentarian who advises the presiding officer. So there's a path to succeed here and not undermine what some Republicans would think is a procedural principle on the filibuster.
Ian Williams is a former foreign correspondent for the BBC, Channel 4 News, and NBC, author of Vampire State, The Rise and Fall of the Chinese Economy. Ian, thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Dan. A pleasure as always.
So you write about what we all heard Trump reference last week in terms of Chinese communist skullduggery. But that wasn't the real election plot that we should focus on, according to your piece in The Spectator.
No, I think there's a far bigger picture here. I think the question of who the Chinese government wanted to win the 2020 election is more open to interpretation, really. If you looked at debate that was going on back then in Beijing. I mean, there was some argument for supporting Trump because they thought they could do a deal with him. They thought there was somebody who they could do business with. But I think that the bigger picture is that around that time, China changed the way it did its disinformation. It became far more Russian. And I think it's even more serious than Trump made out, because China has been targeting the democratic system itself. It's been looking to inflame tensions, to aggravate social and racial divisions, to poke at open wounds, if you like. And I think in many ways that's far more dangerous and far more far-reaching than trying to look for whether China was looking to influence individual voting. I mean, I think, yes, it's almost certainly China got its hands on voter records. That's what it does. It goes after these big data sets and looks for different ways of leveraging them. But I think the bigger picture here is that China's influence operations are now among the world's most expansive and effective. And the target is democratic societies, and America in particular, not just who's going to win a particular election.
The campaign was called Dragon Bridge. Can you describe sort of what this, how this campaign was prosecuted?
Yeah, Dragon Bridge, also known as camouflage. This was something discovered by cybersecurity investigators in 2019. It was the world's biggest disinformation campaign that had yet been discovered, and it involved hundreds of thousands of front organizations, ranging from China's state media, from diplomats, through to vast networks of bots, of robotic networks, pumping out disinformation, amplifying conspiracy theories. It was initially set up just before COVID, and its initial target was COVID, spreading disinformation. You know, you recall when AIDS first emerged, the Soviets had a big campaign to try and paint that as an American conspiracy, as a secret weapon developed by Washington. Well, China did much the same for COVID. And I think at that time, 2018, 2019, Dragon Bridge tended to concentrate on issues which China felt strongly about, defensive, if you like, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Xinjiang province. You saw a lot of data coming out, a lot of evidence of severe repression against the Uyghur population there. And China reacted by putting out videos of happy Uyghurs being grateful for Communist Party benevolence. Absurd. But that was the state of disinformation back then. But I think Dragon Bridge marked a turning point when China began to insert itself in the most contentious debates in the U.S., racial, social, conspiracy theories, in a way of trying to inflame tension and stir things up. And this has been developing ever since. You recall down the Hawaii wildfires in 2023, when what turned out to be a whole host of China front organizations was spreading disinformation that this was a weather weapon that had been developed and had escaped from a U.S. lab. So I think this bigger picture, in a sense, is far more serious than who had electoral gain. It's about trying to undermine U.S. democracy and to try and inflame tensions in a way which potentially is very, very damaging.
Well, there's these clandestine efforts from foreign actors, and then there's fifth column actors like Nikki Flores, I mentioned. Catherine Herridge, great investigative journalist, confirms, reporting that Ron Johnson confirmed Nikki Flores was one of the FBI agents who gave him and Chuck Grassley a defensive briefing about a Russian disinformation campaign targeting the Biden family. Johnson said he believes the FBI's defensive briefing was designed to discourage senators from pursuing the Hunter Biden laptop and to lay the groundwork for the false narrative of October of 2020 that Hunter Biden's laptop was part of a Russian influence operation. And she was the one who, as you heard Trump quote, wrote in a memo, "I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point." That's a direct quote verbatim. So what about those fifth column actors in the FBI and intel agencies that, and this is where I think maybe Trump could have spent more time and been more specific about this internal threat?
I think certainly he could have done. This exists. There's been the evidence that you've described. And I think that we need to understand what China is doing as very much complementing and inflaming this. It's not doing this in a vacuum. And when you do have domestic actors working alongside, whether consciously or not, it makes it all the more dangerous. And also, Dan, we're seeing with the emergence of AI models, the ability to create more plausible narratives, to create more plausible profiles. So stuff that maybe just a few years ago you'd look at and you think, hey, that's absurd. Now you think, well, is it because things are more cleverly put together? And this is where some of these big data sets come in as well, whether it's voter records, the hacking of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, Equifax, all these personal, there's all this personal data, and the ability of AI and machine learning to look for patterns in this, to look for targets, whether that be for disinformation or for other purposes. So we're entering a whole different ball game here, and the sort of tactics that we used to associate with the Soviet Union and then Russia, looking for disruption, for sabotage, to undermine. China is now adopting. It's moving well away from the old defensive disinformation that we used to associate it, and has now embraced these Russian-type tactics.
Well, right, and unfortunately, so are our intel agencies. And I just think this needed equal weight in that speech. I go to what Holman Jenkins wrote in the Wall Street Journal, which I agree with. Get your reaction. He wrote, Mr. Trump's obsession with 2020 election would carry less weight with millions of voters if they saw the media with a tinge of honesty facing up to the one action by any country's intelligence operatives that may actually have changed a presidential outcome. And he's talking about the disinformation campaign surrounding the Hunter Biden laptop, which we actually have some, after election polling that suggests it would have changed the election. So, I mean, it's a circumstantial case, but it's a pretty strong one. And, the irony of all this talk of Russia and China is, Holman Jenkins' point, that's the one action by any country's intelligence operatives that may have changed the outcome of 2020 was our own. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the issues, I think, which you've pointed at there is this, by over-obsessing with 2020 and the electoral process, you miss this bigger picture, whether it's the issues that you describe with domestic intelligence agencies or the malign programs of Russia and China, because this is very much playing into their tactics, because they're looking at the issues which are of most contention, most controversial at home, and looking for ways that they can leverage those, ways that they can poke at wounds. And it's not all happening in a vacuum. These two things need to be seen together. And when you have too much of a focus on the process of the 2020 election, it can miss these far more dangerous trends that are underway. Ian Williams, former foreign correspondent for BBC Channel 4 News and NBC, author of Vampire State, The Rise and Fall of the Chinese Economy. Ian, thanks so much, as always. Appreciate it. My pleasure, Dan. And Ian joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
This is The Morning Show. More Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. You need a construction company, but who? Call Crosscom. A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades, Crosscom has been doing work in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, and Wisconsin. Roofs, siding, windows, doors, gutters, basically everything for your home or business, even solar. Quality work and professional services that make you feel great about your decision to work with Crosscom. Call Crosscom. 630-871-5500. Give them a chance to earn your business. If your repairs are due to storm, fire, or flood damage, you need to call Crosscom. They're licensed public adjusters. They work for you, not the insurance company. Crosscom will work to get you the money you deserve, the maximum payout. They know the insurance companies and how to deal with them. They win for you. Call Crosscom. Crosscom Construction and Public Adjusters.
This is Dan Lights with Crosscom. You can trust us with your home or business for high-quality work and fair prices. It's the only way we do business.
630-871-5500. CrosscomPublicAdjusters.com. AM 560. The Answer.
All right, coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project will talk a little bit more perhaps about the Save America Act, as well as updating the state of play with immigration law enforcement. Tom Homan was ubiquitous over the weekend, giving status updates, which is why he is the indispensable executive in the administration, in my view, on the core deliverable for the Trump administration, and that's border security and deportations. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
They are mourning in Eva Beach, Hawaii, and Carrollton, Texas. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The hometowns of the 2 American soldiers identified this morning by the War Department, killed in an Iranian attack Friday on a U.S. base in Jordan. Army First Lieutenant Tyler Fian and Private Isabella Gonzalez. President Trump told reporters last night,
"Well, we feel very badly, but those great people, those great patriots were out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon."
A third American service member was also hit in Friday's attack.
The U.S. military still working to identify the third soldier. A fourth soldier was killed in northern Iraq during a controlled detonation of an unexploded Iranian drone.
Fox's Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv also details another night of American bombing.
A 9th consecutive night of U.S. strikes hit Iran overnight, according to CENTCOM. Military command centers, surveillance sites, maritime capabilities, surveillance systems, and drone and missile launch positions were hit.
The UK has a new leader. Keir Starmer resigned as Prime Minister this morning. Andy Burnham replaced him.
I will bring forward a new plan for Britain.
He's their 7th Prime Minister in 10 years.
Prime Minister Burnham says he wants to bring back hope.
I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all.
Burnham remains an unknown quantity even to Brits. 40% in a recent poll couldn't recognise the UK's new Prime Minister. He'll spend the summer unveiling a series of policies, likely moving the UK to the left.
It's Fox's Jonathan Savage. A tropical storm is expected to form today in the Gulf. It'll be named Bertha. It's a depression now.
Currently, it's producing some strong thunderstorms moving along the Florida Panhandle. There's still questions on the exact track. Does this move into Louisiana midweek and we're done with it? Or does it stay down to the south, gets a little bit stronger, and produces an issue for Texas and western Louisiana?
That's Fox weather meteorologist Britta Merwin. America's listening to Fox News.
8:02, 65 degrees. It's sunshine for now, but some heavy weather on the way. In our QC Kinetics newsroom, also want to remind you that there is an air quality alert that remains in effect through the evening hours. In Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, a man was shot and killed in a fight. It happened Sunday night around 11:45 in the 2200 block of North Lincoln Avenue, where a 30-year-old man was struck by gunfire, taken to Advocate Illinois Masonic Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead. A man died after being stabbed in North Chicago. Officers found that victim after midnight. The man was in his 30s, a name not been released. Lake County police rescued 3 swimmers struggling to stay afloat in a lake on Saturday afternoon. Police tell us the group had been drinking and became separated from a rental boat during a bachelor party. And a bankruptcy hearing today could determine whether Hawthorne Racecourse is sold and redeveloped for another use. Now, the track's owners filed for bankruptcy in February, and a judge is now expected to consider that proposed sale. Chicago sports, first-place White Sox over the Blue Jays, 3-0, and a Sunday win for the Cubs over the Twins, 10-1. The news, a service of Steiner Homes. Building homes is more than a business, it's a calling. Family-owned and dedicated to building custom homes with care, integrity, and craftsmanship you can trust. Visit SteinerHomesLTD.com. Steiner Homes, love where you live. Time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank.
I'm Elizabeth McDonald, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Samsung is planning job cuts and relocations as it prepares to move its consumer electronics headquarters from New Jersey to Texas. Reuters says workers in both New Jersey and Texas are impacted. The company confirms that 739 people working in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, are either being relocated or let go. It just opened new offices in New Jersey last September. Discount European airline Ryanair reported a weaker profit in the recent quarter. It was impacted by lower fares and higher fuel costs. Ryanair lowered fares 6% in the quarter. It says passengers are booking closer to the departure because of heightened uncertainty. Crude oil prices are higher this morning after renewed tensions in the Iran conflict. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Scott Jennings sees a little common sense coming from the court.
The court upheld laws in Idaho and West Virginia that restrict boys from competing on girls' and women's sports teams, ruling that the bans are consistent with both Title IX and the U.S. Constitution. It's common sense, boys competing against boys and girls against girls.
The Scott Jennings Show, weekdays at noon, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The market for antiques and collectibles is changing all the time. What is your collection worth right now? Well, I've got an easy way to find out. It's simple. You contact Donley Auctions. With their worldwide audience of live and in-person auctions, they have a good idea of how to tell you exactly what it's worth at exactly right now. They're ready to put top dollar in your pocket. The bigger the collection, the better. Go to DonleyAuctions.com and get the info on all things that they buy and sell to have an idea of exactly what Donley does and how much they need your collection. They have so many buyers, it's a great time to sell. Just simply make a phone call. Donley has traveled all over the country to pick up collections. Just call and talk to the people at Donley Auctions at 815-923-7000. Donley Auctions is your trusted partner in turning your collections into cash. DonleyAuctions.com.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act, helping states create colleges focused on agriculture, mechanics, science, and practical education. The principle was not centralized control, it was opportunity. Lincoln's Morrill Act reminds us that America can support education without surrendering education to Washington. Why did it matter? Because a free nation needs citizens equipped to work, build, steward, and govern themselves. Scripture gives work a sacred weight. In Genesis, God placed man in the garden to work it and to keep it. Proverbs honors the one who works his land. Paul warns against idleness and calls believers to earn their bread. Why does that still matter today? Because education should form capable people under God, not dependent subjects under bureaucracy.
Do you struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep in a traditional bed? Experience Zecliner, the revolutionary recliner by FlexSteel. The Zecliner was engineered with restful sleep in mind. A healthy life starts with a healthy night's sleep. Zecliner is more than just a recliner, featuring custom power adjustments like recline, headrest, lumbar, heat, massage. It's a personalized comfort experience. Zecliner is a sleep solution backed by FlexSteel's durability that you can trust, delivering unmatched comfort, technology, and support. Discover the Zecliner by FlexSteel at Steinhoffel's.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
8:09.
Check of the roads in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, and we've gotten busy. Accident, express lanes on the Kennedy. Inbound at California, it's being shoved off onto the right-hand shoulder. The Ike, really slow inbound between 25th and Ashland. The Stevenson jamming up Harlem to Kedzie. Stop-and-go traffic on Lakeshore Drive northbound between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood. Route 53 northbound between the Ike and Kirchhoff. You have those delays. And a reminder, Metra North Central service. Trains are stopped at Wheeling, inbound and outbound, due to a train striking a pedestrian. Traffic, a service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency. Go to surroundchicago.com today. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. But now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will bring a mix of sun and clouds with the possibility of a strong thunderstorm in some areas later this afternoon. Expect reduced air quality due to wildfire smoke with the chance of storms bringing damaging winds and hail. The high temperature will reach 86 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I want to go back to the idea that the next 250 for America is going to necessarily have to be fought out in the classrooms. Classroom by classroom, school by school, largely. Not exclusively, but largely. And a speech that Catherine Birbalsingh, known as Britain's strictest headmistress, she is the University of Oxford grad who is the headmaster at Michaela Community School in London. She's excellent on this topic of Indian extraction, interestingly. Catherine Birbalsingh on what happened in the West to bring us to this point that, in part, Marco Rubio outlined in his speech that we've talked quite a bit about this morning because it merits it. What happened in the West, in the classroom, and what needs to happen going forward.
The culture shift comes from what children learn at school and online. Ask any young person what history they learned at school, and they'll tell you Hitler. Ask them what else? Slavery. Ask them what else? American civil rights. In fact, what little they know of history will be all about black and brown people fighting for equality against the white man. Women fighting men for the vote. Gay and trans people fighting for various rights. Our young people have been taught that history is simply one long story about various groups struggling under the oppressive dead white man. Out with Dickens, Shakespeare, Kipling, and Wordsworth. We must decolonize. History is taught through an oppressor lens. The triangular slave trade, white men held the power. What about Britain ending the slave trade? More than a quick mention, if at all? No. What of the Arab slave trade that lasted 3 times as long as the triangular slave trade? No. Okay, so GCSE history in Britain is often taught as migration through time. So the idea that Britain has always been a land of immigrants is embedded in our children's heads. Most schools would prefer to concentrate learning about the tiny number of black people who existed in Tudor England over a thorough analysis of England's break from Rome. Medieval history becomes her story and is told through the eyes of Eleanor of Aquitaine, because after all, she was a woman. Not to mention weeks on King Mansa Musa of Mali, because he was a black Muslim. His bearing on British institutions, laws, and faith is non-existent. And the fact that he is said to have been the richest man in history, thanks in part to his massive slave-owning society, is a detail somehow that teachers rarely ever teach. But it isn't just our schools. It's our general culture, too. Take your kids to a museum or an art gallery in any Western country, and you'll find the same narrative. As an example, When learning about aviation in London's Science Museum and the extraordinary feat that is man making massive machines move in the sky, a write-up on the wall explains that women and black people were historically barred from aviation schools and the military. Similarly, James Watt, the man who invented the steam engine and is considered the founder of the Industrial Revolution, has a write-up on the wall explaining that his early career involved slave trafficking with a bonus analysis of the whole of Britain's complicity in the slave trade. They flatten the entire human story and all of its complexities into the narrative of oppressor and oppressed, leaving young people unable to see the world in any other terms.
Flatten the history. That's a good phrase. And it produces people like AOC, who has essentially applied exactly what Birbalsingh said to every issue. She's not the only one. She's just, I don't know. She doesn't strike me as one of the more skilled practitioners, but she strikes her party as it, her movement as it.
I don't support the filibuster. I don't support elements of this institution that we know, were founded on Jim Crow.
I mean, what do you even say to that? It's so ahistorical, but that's sort of the point. That's Birbalsingh's point. Everything is seen through the lens of oppressor and oppressed, as we've talked about a lot, but it just flattens history. And all you have to do is throw out slavery, Jim Crow. It doesn't matter if it's ahistorical. It doesn't matter if the timing doesn't match up. It doesn't matter if the background gives lie to that statement. Something I support or oppose, and I just attach something that appeals to the identitarian, addled neo-Bolsheviks, or something that antagonizes them like it antagonizes me, the filibuster. The means to do it is just this: we're striking a blow against Jim Crow. I believe the filibuster was used in the first session of the Senate, and it's, evolved over the centuries now. But again, that sort of textured conversation about any issue is completely beside the point, because so many people have no ability to participate meaningfully in that conversation, have no idea what we're talking about, including people like AOC, frankly. So what do we do about it? Back to Birbalsingh.
Is that slavery was not about race, and that's important. It was not about race. The only reason we think it's about race is because philosophers like David Hume in the 18th century ranked human beings and put Africans at the bottom, saying that they had no souls. The Enlightenment imposed the concept of race on a practice that had been going on for centuries in order to justify that practice. And why did they have to justify it? And this is the point. Because people in the West began to question slavery's moral validity. The fact is that people of all colors owned slaves, both as part of the Atlantic slave trade and outside of it. In the United States and Caribbean, black people owned thousands of black slaves, and so did the Native Americans. Nearly 20,000 of the Native American 5 civilized tribes sided with the Confederacy during the Civil War, fighting to keep slavery alive. 28% of the black population who were free in New Orleans pledged their support to the Confederacy. All of the 13 southern states of the Confederacy had substantial numbers of black slave owners. There were more than 250,000 free blacks, and nearly 4,000 of them were slave masters who owned more than 20,000 slaves. The practice of slavery was legal, after all. We need to remember that governments did not own slaves. Slave owners did. In fact, the U.S. government fought a war to end slavery. How much should the descendants of the 400,000 Union soldiers who lost their lives fighting to free the slaves pay to the descendants of the slaves they freed? It's bizarre to suggest that human beings should inherit the outrage of the deeds of their parents. Should the child of a mass murderer be sent to prison because of his father's crime? No. In America, in the main, it was the Democrats who owned slaves, and the Democrats who in the main passed and enforced Jim Crow laws. It was also the Democrats who founded the Ku Klux Klan. Should the current Democratic Party be held responsible for this? No. We do not inherit the sins of our fathers.
So what do we do about it? Tell the whole story, like she just did. There's an example on that topic of slavery, since that is central to any discussion of American history at most schools, government and private these days. Tell the whole story. And don't allow the teachers' union apparatchiks to cower you by saying, oh, you're trying to whitewash history and slavery and the transgressions of American men and women throughout the ages. Yeah, some horrible things we've done to each other. And it should all be hashed out, but it should be hashed out in that way, too, where the complete story and the questions to consider in terms of how you think about what happened, how it was addressed, and what its relevance today should be in terms of policymaking. I mean, again, understanding of it, but in terms of prospective policymaking, too, since that's the basis of these positions that particularly one of the two major parties is taking. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. This is why the classroom is the battleground for the next 250. Exactly what Birbal Singh laid out about what's happening and a substantive example of what should be happening. The complete story. Not just the Howard Zinn portion of the story. Gary in Naperville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jan, for this topic. And I actually did a doctorate in history of education. And I can say from my own experiences, I was probably shocked when I went from schools in the 50s and 60s where you had history class, learning the more classical way of everything, including American history. And all of a sudden I'm teaching in schools where the textbooks have changed to social studies. They've changed to their presentation of things, like was just articulated by that lady, more negative towards America. But that's why we got to realize what a big challenge it is, because when these teachers have been conditioned, because I'm an old man now here, I'm 70, almost 72, the young generation, it was totally immersed in the wrong philosophy. And what they did too, and this is nothing against women, but when schools were more mixed with men and women, just like today, we approach these issues a little differently. Like when I was in high school, almost all the teachers were men, and a lot of them had gone through World War II in Korea. And, so they had a different approach towards some of these communist socialist things, whereas now people are removed from that. So we need to, it's going to be a big challenge, but also don't attack all teachers, because one thing I liked in the end of my career, there were more mature people coming into teaching as a second career, and they tend to be more conservative and less sold out on the what the universities were feeding.
100%. Thanks for the call, Gary. Yeah, no, it's not an attack on all. It never is. It's not an attack on all teachers or all professors or all administrators. It's very specific based on conduct and the pedagogy that's deployed in the classroom. David, Rogers Park.
Hi, good morning. You make a lot of valid points. I just wanted to add one thing. It says in the 13 virtues of God's mercy that the children do inherit the sins of their fathers if they continue in those sins. So I think some of the hate, quote unquote, against slavery is still appropriate if people are still racist today. For example, I'm Jewish. My great grandparents went to the Holocaust. If they're still anti-Semites in Germany, I'm going to call them a Nazi, even though they didn't actually kill my family. So, if people today are continuing racism and they still hate, or, Jim Crow, not today, I'm talking about more like 50, 60 years ago, then I think it is appropriate to still question them about slavery. That's it.
Thanks for the call, David. I mean, yeah, that's fair. If people are still engaged in the same ignorance as people from a bygone era, then sure, they deserve to be called out for such.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Want to see my drawers?
He means the drawers of the Briley bedroom from Penny Mustard.
Not all drawers are created equal,
but the Briley bedroom's drawers are equally awesome.
With full extension drawer glides and sturdy bottoms that are 3/8 of an inch thick.
And that's good because nothing's worse than when your bottom falls out.
He means your drawer bottom.
But the Briley bedroom is more than just drawers.
I love the flared feet and how the shape of the headboard matches the mirror.
Along with hundreds of fabric options for the headboard and a variety of hardware.
And drawer bottom strong enough to stand on.
You know, if we dedicate this much time to the drawers, just imagine how well constructed the rest of the Briley bedroom must be.
What are you waiting for? Come see my drawers.
The Briley bedroom, American made with a queen bed, dresser, mirror, and nightstand, starting at $99.33 at Penny Mustard.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of the drawers people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4everremodeling.com to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's NobleGoldInvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
The following contains a celebrity impersonation.
Mr. President, we're seeing reporting that air conditioning systems are failing as temperatures rise. What is your response?
I said, don't wait. People wait until the last second, then suddenly it's hot and nothing works. I understand this stuff probably better than anybody.
Mr. President, why hasn't the White House issued any guidance?
I gave perfect guidance. Call Air Right Heating and Cooling. That's the guidance. If people followed it, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Sir, but homeowners have so many HVAC options.
They're not like Air Right. You've got some bad installers out there, some real bad hombres. I wouldn't let them near the White House. It would be a complete disaster.
Mr. President, there are reports of significant rebates on new systems. Can you confirm?
I've heard about them. A lot of people talking about them. If you miss out, you'd have to be really not so smart. Tremendous savings, let me tell you.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling at AIR-RITE.com. Air Right, doing it right since 1959.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act, helping states create colleges focused on agriculture, mechanics, science, and practical education. The principle was not centralized control, it was opportunity. Lincoln's Morrill Act reminds us that America can support education without surrendering education to Washington. Why did it matter? Because a free nation needs citizens equipped to work, build, steward, and govern themselves. Scripture gives work a sacred weight. In Genesis, God placed man in the garden to work it and to keep it. Proverbs honors the one who works his land. Paul warns against idleness and calls believers to earn their bread. Why does that still matter today? Because education should form capable people under God, not dependent subjects under bureaucracy.
You know that feeling when you call your insurance company and you know that you're getting put into queue? Nobody wants to go through that. Specifically, Tommy and TJ Iaquinta with Class A Insurance. They're a father and son team built right here in Chicago's southwest suburbs on one idea: treat people like family. See, because they're independent, they're not stuck in pushing one company policy on you, one company rates on you. They shop the best carriers in the country, names you'd recognize, and find coverage that actually fits your life, your home, your car, even your boat and motorcycle. That's why they've been named one of the top 25 home insurance agencies in Chicago. 2 generations, 1 agency. And clients that stick with them for years. When something happens and claims happen, Tommy or TJ is the one who picks up the phone and walks you through the process themselves. If you're paying for a policy you don't understand from a company you never talked to, it's simple. Head to 560insurance.com. That's 560insurance.com. Get a free quote in minutes at 560insurance.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Well, that's a debate stage in Maine with a bunch of the neo-Bolsheviks that were auditioning to replace the accused rapist Nazi who left the race, Graham Plattner. That was a Star Wars bar moment, wasn't it? Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be Ashley Webb as the replacement, although it seems to be totally appropriate for Stephen King land up there, what it's become. Interestingly, the guy who was anticipated to be the replacement is going to be the replacement, Troy Jackson, Republican who became a leftist. So is Ashley Webb. Ashley Webb, this boy named Ashley, dad was a Republican state legislator in Maine. He was I don't know if he was a Republican, but he was critical of the left recently until he decided to prance around pretending to be a woman. And when asked what his qualifications were for the Senate in that debate, said the following.
Ashley Webb, what qualifications do you have to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Oh, I ran for office several times. Didn't win, but I did run. And then I'm a songwriter, and then I write my own books. And then I suppose my transparency, I wouldn't lie to the people, and I wouldn't deceive the people like we're being deceived right now. Like
transparency. I see what he did there. Yeah, Ashley Webb. He sure does.
I write the songs of love and special things. I write the songs that make the young girls cry.
Ashley Webb writes the songs. He writes the songs. I think Maine voters have a right to hear Ashley Webb's music before Election Day. Maybe before the decision's made, final decision is made on the replacement. I certainly would like to. Coming up at 8:38, we'll talk border and deportations with Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project. Now we check the headlines with Mike.
Reliving middle school, 1975. That's when that song came out.
Was then you were a Barry Manilow acolyte, I presume?
I was just in middle school.
Yeah.
But I do remember the songs.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. QC Kinetics newsroom time and 8:32. Air quality alert remains in effect through Monday night as more Canadian wildfire smoke will drift across the area, and beginning about 5:30, watch out for some severe weather crossing the area. A man was shot and killed in a fight in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. It happened last night around 11:45 in the 2200 block of North Lincoln Avenue. During the fight, someone pulled a gun and shot a 30-year-old. The victim taken to Advocate Illinois Masonic Medical Center, later pronounced dead. A man died after being stabbed early Sunday in North Chicago. Police officers say they found the victim around midnight. The man was rushed to a nearby hospital and later died. Police are continuing to investigate, and they have not announced any arrests. Attacks in the Middle East continue after the deaths of 3 American service members. Fox's Trey Yingst is in the Middle East.
A ninth consecutive night of U.S. strikes hit Iran. According to U.S. Central Command, a variety of different targets were hit, including Iranian military command centers, surveillance sites, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch positions, and communications networks. The strikes do come after 3 U.S. service members were killed by an Iranian ballistic missile attack in Jordan on Friday. A 4th soldier was killed in northern Iraq during a controlled detonation of an unexploded Iranian drone. President Trump told Fox News last week that if Iran doesn't reach a deal, strikes will escalate this week to hit power plants and bridges.
It all comes as Iran's supreme leader is vowing to widen the war if the U.S. keeps attacking the Islamic Republic. White House border czar Tom Homan says he now thinks body cameras are very important when it comes to ICE-involved shootings.
You can have a cell phone camera from a witness on the side. You can have, city cameras or whatever. But I want the American people to see what that officer sees when he makes the decision, takes an action.
Holman made the comment on CBS's Face the Nation. A Bellwood police officer is facing a felony charge after prosecutors say he shared confidential information with a criminal suspect he knew. Investigators say 32-year-old Michael Davis photographed records from a state police database and then sent them to the suspect. Davis also allegedly advised the person involved to hide or sell a car connected to the case. Chicago sports. First place White Sox claimed their series with the Blue Jays following a 3-0 win in Toronto. Well, the Cubs were 10-1 winners over the Twins, and they host Detroit tonight. The Blackhawks extend Connor Bedard, 5 years, $75 million. The news service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges, including early access to event tickets, exclusive contest opportunities, and you can join today at 560theanswer.com/join. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by LeavingIL.com and by Unique Wooden Flags.
Hey, business owners, is your business and money in good hands? Does your bank invest in your success? Hi, Mike Gallagher here, letting you know that when you need a relationship bank, Signature Bank makes commercial banking personal. I love these guys. Not only do they have expansive industry experience, a strong financial track record, but they're also highly capitalized for strategic growth. That's so important. That's why Signature Bank is my bank. They know what it means to grow a business by designing solutions that are right for you and only you. These are real people. They're ready to help. So reach out to my friends at Signature Bank. Make the call today, 773-467-5630, 773-467-5630, or visit them online at signaturebank.bank. That's signaturebank.bank. Your business could be Signature Bank's next success story. Go online, signaturebank.bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Signature Bank.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. During cold and flu season, a nearby cough or sneeze can trigger a familiar dread, that helpless feeling of being defenseless against an invisible viral threat. But what if you could change the narrative? What if you could fortify your body's natural defenses? This is why I developed Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail designed to give your body the upper hand. Virago is more than a supplement. It's a revolutionary liquid formula packed with 23 powerful natural nutraceuticals for rapid absorption. This unique blend is scientifically crafted to help build resilience and keep you protected. Don't just hope for good health. Make it happen with Virago. Virago and Maha, making America healthy again.
Virago. Order your bottle today online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. myvirago.com. Coupon code IMMUNE.
Oh!
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's joint arthritis treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
8:39, 71 degrees. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. In Wheaton, an accident. Harrison and North Gary. Glen Ellen, an accident. Route 53, right at the Reagan, I-88. A reminder, Metro North Central service is stopped because of a pedestrian that was struck, so trains are not moving in either direction. Inbound and outbound train movement is stopped right before Wheeling. Route 53, got stop-and-go traffic heading into that construction zone northbound between the Ike and Kirchhoff. Lakeshore Drive jamming up Bryn Mawr up to Hollywood. Typical stop-and-go on the Stevenson inbound between Harlem and Kedzie. Traffic, a service of RockAuto.com. A failed strut can turn any drive into a rough ride. When it's time for repairs, Rock Auto makes finding the right parts easy. Name brands, lower prices, parts shipped directly to your door. All the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but first, check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Partly sunny. Chance of afternoon thunderstorms will top out near 86.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Border Security point man Tom Homan making the rounds on the Sunday talkies to deal with, well, what else is new? The open borders propaganda, the defund the ICE, abolish ICE propagandists, same people, and to update the state of operations as it pertains to removals, deportations, and even to counteract some of the cynical pronouncements from those who are supportive of the Trump administration's border security efforts, but thinks they're slowing down or losing interest. Tom Homan was there to say, no, we're not.
But prioritization of the worst of the criminals doesn't mean we forget about everybody else. And let me give you a clear example of where we're at. So 60% of everybody we're arresting right now is a criminal, 40% are non-criminal. So we are arresting a lot of non-criminals. I think 60% criminal, 40% non-criminal is actually better than 40% non-criminal, 60% non-criminal. I just think it's better. But the numbers are what they are now. A few months ago, people were screaming and yelling. The numbers are down. Well, the government was shut down. DHS was shut down. But what happens when we got the reconciliation bill passed? Right now, we're up 40% over last year. So everybody says last year was a good year. It's a historic year last year. We arrested, deported more people than any present history last year. Right now, we're on a track of beating that by 40% right now. In June, ICE arrested more illegal aliens in June than any month in history. I looked at the number this morning. July looks like it's tracking to beat June. So look, we're hitting on all cylinders right now. We're doing a great job. But when it comes to removals, we had record number of removals last year. But here's what people don't understand. They say, we want more, we want more, we want more. It's not a simple case of arresting, deporting. There's a process to find them, and there's a whole process between the arrests and deportations. What people don't understand, despite all the pushback we're getting right now, there's over 100 nationwide injunctions against us for arrests, detention, removals. Over 100. That's more nationwide injunctions than every president in the history of this nation combined. So it's an all-out assault on the Trump administration. So we got over 100 nationwide injunctions. The government was shut down for months. We have a record number of habeas cases filed by radical judges, where I was told yesterday the number is around 65,000 people that we arrested that we had to release because of habeas cases out of radical judges. So there's a lot we're fighting against, but more than any other president. But even though we have all those struggles with the courts and the open borders agenda, we're still breaking records.
And to his point, he gave an example. Kathy Hochul announcing that she will not let sheriffs in the state of New York rent out their facilities to ICE. Well, okay, it's unfortunate, but
tell me you're supporting the immigrant community because you're going to force us for more collateral arrests, which I certainly have no problem with. And second of all, part of her thing she signed, we can no longer rent beds from sheriffs to hold illegal aliens, which means every illegal alien we arrest in New York, we're going to simply fly out of state. How does that benefit the immigrant community? I'm perfectly fine with it, but don't say you're doing this to protect the immigrant community because, Griff, you've been on a lot of operations. The immigrant community are victimized by criminal illegal aliens more than anybody.
Well, they don't care about that. Politicians like Kathy Hochul or Zoran Mamdani, they care about the larger DSA agenda. That's who they are in service to. And Mamdani said as much in a sit-down with Lulu Garcia-Navarro for her podcast when she asked him about asylum seekers at the border.
I think oftentimes we are forced into these false choices.
Would you have asylum seekers be able to, for example, ask for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border?
What is the law today? What are they legally entitled to do?
The law today, under President Trump, the law today is that they're not.
But in terms of international obligations, in terms
and that
of
has meant that the border has seen a dramatic drop in illegal crossings. So I guess that is the tension that a lot of people see.
I think that what we've found from the Republican administration has been a desire to make any and all immigration illegal.
Nice workaround. What's the law? Well, here's the law. Well, then there's international obligations, but she cut them off. What do you mean, international obligations to do what? We have domestic obligations to follow the law, right? Because he carries on so much all the time talking about how we're only going to do what's within the purview of the law. We're only going to do what's in our power when it comes to making pronouncements like examining whether or not they can arrest Bibi when he comes to visit the UN, which of course they can't. But that's the city of New York, that is. But we're going to do within the bounds of the law. He's always talking about that, as a good flim-flam man will, even while seeking to undermine it rhetorically and substantively. International obligation, she should let him finish, or she should have followed up. What does that mean? Of course, by the way, you can still apply for asylum. You're just not released into this country willy-nilly like you were in the previous administration. For more on all this, please be joined by Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel at the Article 3 Project. Will, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, it was good to hear from Tom Homan, and he's so good on this topic and so aggressive, proactive, really, in communicating, which is super helpful. I continue to say he's sort of the indispensable executive in the Trump administration. But I wanted to get something else that was announced by Trump, too, which is the use of something that hasn't been used, I guess, in 3 decades, the Alien Terrorist Removal Court, and how that can legitimately be used in furtherance of the agenda that Tom Homan is seeking to serve.
Yeah, so this is apparently a court created by statute in the 90s that hasn't ever been used before, that nobody's ever made a referral to, but I think it came up in the context of the Alien Enemies Act litigation. I think Judge Boasberg sort of asked government officials why they hadn't tried this one for the sort of expedited removal, but apparently it provides a much more expedited way to get alien terrorists out of the country. That said, because it's untested, we really don't know. Like, maybe the courts will move fast on this, but we've seen that with anything where there's like it hasn't been used before, things don't necessarily proceed with speed because everybody kind of has to figure out what the rules are, and they're starting only with the statute. There's no court rulings to sort of provide any color and help people understand what they need to do.
And the back and forth, too, on ICE doing vehicle stops on ICE and the use of body cams. Seems to me vehicle stops, yes, and body cams, yes. That should be the position, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, I mean, body cams is when they were doing the negotiations over funding DHS and border wall during the shutdown, I was just saying that the one thing we should absolutely be willing to concede on is body cams, because if anything, they benefit law enforcement. They, in the context of Black Lives Matter, they sort of ended that movement on the spot because they revealed that instead of the situation being cops just killing random black people on the street willy-nilly, it's that you get to see all these videos of cops having to deal with insanely unreasonable people and defending themselves using legal force. Similarly here, I think that body cams would be very useful for ICE, because I suspect that what they would reveal is that in these shooting incidents, that almost always it is the person who's being attempted to be detained that is behaving unreasonably and putting the ICE officers in fear for their lives.
I wanted to get your reaction. This was a fun exchange over the weekend. Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, was on This Week with Jonathan Karl. And again, somebody that cloaks themselves in the rule of law, even though he doesn't even know what it is in Virginia. This is with respect to the Save America Act and voter ID generally.
ID to register to vote. Is this something that Democrats should get behind?
We have
80-some% of Americans, 71% of Democrats say they favor this?
You know what? In Virginia, we have voter ID and photo ID. I got to show my...
That's actually not the case. I mean, I'm a Virginia voter. You don't need to show a photo ID in Virginia. There are a wide range of things you can show for ID. And if you don't show one of those, you can sign an affidavit saying...
You can sign an affidavit.
But so it's not required.
Those become ballots that, if you want to contest later, can be contested. But you do have a variety of documents. But we have voter ID of one form or another.
But should that be a national standard? That you have to show an ID?
The irony here would be the case. If you can show any photo that is government stamped, would be fine. Certain states will say, we're going to let you show your NRA gun license, but you can't show your student ID. If you're going to have...
I'm not sure he's the best national spokesman in opposition to the Save America Act, Will.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He has trouble defending the Democrat position here but I don't know that anybody else would do a better job when pressed on the details. I think that's why Democrats don't generally answer questions about this or try and move on to the next one, because obviously everybody uses ID in their daily lives for any number of reasons: to buy alcohol, to get on a plane, to drive. There's so many things you can't do without ID, and it actually insults the intelligence of people and is kind of racist, honestly, to suggest that there's certain people who are just incapable of getting IDs. And for all the money that's spent on voter registration, you'd think that money could be profitably spent helping people and doing something actually beneficial for them and locating those people who are without the ability to prove who they are and help them do that and help them go to the DMV and get IDs. Yeah,
and now famously, we have Olive Garden being pulled into this discussion because the all-you-can-eat pasta card is barcoded to your specific ID. You can't give your ID to somebody else if you want to eat as much fettuccine as you want to eat at Olive Garden. To sign up for their program, strict ID enforcement there. And so Stephen Miller and many others making the point over the weekend that Olive Garden has more strict ID requirements than states like Virginia and California for voting.
Yeah. No, exactly right. Like it's an absurd position to take. There's a reason it's an 80-20 issue in the public. I mean, everybody just thinks it's insane that you can vote without ID. I think everybody will concede that election integrity is something we actually need. So it is really amazing that the Democrats have decided to pick a fight here. But I guess they think they'll lose votes if they lose illegal votes.
No question. House Budget Committee Chairman Jody Arrington said over the weekend that they're going to try and move the SAVE Act. I mean, this has been bandied about for a while now, but it's moving, I guess, at this point before recess. Trying to move the SAVE Act through the House and through the Senate by attaching it to a reconciliation, but through the process of reconciliation, attaching it to budgetary matters, getting it past the parliamentarian, and hopefully past the couple few ne'er-do-wells in the Senate Republican caucus who are opposing this, like Murkowski and Tillis. Do you think it passes muster with what the House Republicans are trying to do, getting this through on a reconciliation move? And, what do you think the prospects are with those recalcitrant Republican senators?
I mean, I just think I think the prospects of getting this done prior to the midterms are very low. I just don't think we have the majority we need. We don't have a workable majority right now. We've got a lot of senators who just are mad at Trump and they're leaving office in 6 months or 8 months or whatever. So we just kind of don't really have a lot of leverage over them. Like, we don't have a lot of leverage over Tom Tillis. We don't have a lot of leverage over Bill Cassidy because they lost their seats or they retired. And then also I think that the problem is that that doesn't fit the traditional model of what's allowed in a reconciliation bill because it's a substantive change to the law rather than a budgetary matter. So I doubt that the parliamentarian will allow it. And then, I don't think Thune has the votes to override the parliamentarian effectively, right? To get Tillis and Murkowski and Cassidy to all agree that, yeah, we don't care that this is a budgetary issue. We're going to vote that it should be allowed in a reconciliation bill. I just doubt it.
Just your assessment of Thune, since he's taking so much heat, has he done everything he can? Has he been as aggressive within his caucus as he should have been to try to whip the vote, carrot and stick and everything else? Or is he just sort of really playing Pontius Pilate on this?
I don't know what Thune has done behind the scenes, but I don't end up. He has the job I would like least in all of Washington because he has the perceived authority. He has the perceived responsibility to get this stuff passed, but not the authority necessary to do so. Right? Every senator is an independent sovereign over their own vote. He doesn't have any coercive authority other than I can kick you off a committee. But then he'd have a rebellion on his hands among the senators who want to retain their own authority and not submit to a leader. This is not the first time a problem like this has arisen. So I don't get on Thune too much. I think the real problem lies when we have a clique of kind of rebellious, insubordinate senators who don't want to do what the base wants, and without them, we don't have a majority. And so I'm not the kind of person who thinks Thune can pull a rabbit out of the hat. And I really think somehow we need to find a way to get more pressure on those people who Trump can't really pressure as well because they're mad at Trump.
Will Chamberlain, senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. Will, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from Big Wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
I'm excited about it. These cutting-edge things that are new in medicine now, I'm all in on it. I'm all in on QC Kinetics. It works.
Henry Hinton decided to check out QC Kinetics regenerative treatments for his aching knees after seeing a close friend have amazing results without going under the knife.
I have a friend that started this, which is one of the reasons that I decided to do it. He could not play golf anymore, and he went to QC Kinetics and started having the treatments, and he's back golfing like 3 days a week. He couldn't play at all.
QC Kinetics gets you back to doing what you love, using your own natural biologics to help heal and restore damaged joints. Long-term relief that puts a guy back on the golf course.
You know, I've had one treatment so far, and I can already tell a difference. QC Kinetics works. I'm excited about it.
You're next. Start with a call to QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics, 312-827-6261. That's 312-827-6261. 312-827-6261.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again, not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family-owned with integrity since 1981.
AM 560, The Answer.
Thank you for joining us on another edition of Chicago's Morning Answer. Back tomorrow with more wit and wisdom. It's now 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.